You said my name like it was finished, like you already made your peace. I smiled like I was okay, but inside I couldn't breathe. Since September we've been building, so how you drop it overnight? I'm not here to make you stay, I just need one moment right. I'm not asking you to change, I'm asking you to be real.
Give me 1 hour with your heart,
1 honest minute in the dark.
don't hand me, you'll be fine.
Like I'm easy to discard.
If this is goodbye,
Don't make it cold,
don't make it quick.
don't lose control. You can leave, I won't fall apart, but don't abandon me. Give me 1 hour with your heart.
Go with it, yeah. I didn't mean to cut you like that. I just don't know how to stay. Every talk turns into pressure, and I shut down trying to explain. It wasn't nothing, it was something. But I'm tired of feeling wrong. I'm not here to erase you, I just can't keep holding on.
So let me say it clean, without a fight, without blame.
I'll give you 1 hour,
With my heart,
no running out into the dark. But
The person's problem is their own inabilities, is their own shortcomings as a human being.
this is goodbye.
So that will be taken advantage of if there's room to be taken advantage of under any circumstance, amongst his friends, amongst his family members, and maybe in a relationship. Maybe you end up in a relationship with a woman who is, extremely narcissistic or whatever. That's a human being thing. But how does it actually harm men in general? Like, what is the real threat here? Because actually the opposite, for women, there's a real imminent threat. If you are with somebody who is feeling insecure about these things, who is feeling like you've been taking the upper hand from them all along, you manipulate them, and then they hear this type of context. I say yes all the time. They could do something irrational. They don't even have the emotional maturity to say, to make good decisions. That woman is probably in more danger. That's how I see it. That's what the stats say. So my point is, yes, you're trying to talk to a group of minority men that, maybe you're saying that they're not assertive people, but I don't see how this links back to women. That's my point.
It doesn't. And you made yourself a center of the situation when you're not the center of the situation. So I want you to mute up and don't interrupt, because I want to make it very clear. Number one, what you've done is manipulative. I'm going to tell you why it's manipulative. You and I won't say, no, let me not say intentionally, because I don't know your full intentions. I don't know you very well. You flip the narrative on what conversations we just had. When I said about men lacking visual, you know that me and Ferry were having a conversation contextually about double standards. Ferry said to me, there are double standards. And I intentionally said, well, if that's the case, then men are visual creatures. This is what they did as contextual, what I said. You've intentionally flipped it. Let me not say intentional. Let me flip it back again. It feels like you've done it intentionally, but that doesn't mean you've actually done it intentionally. But you flipped what I said because it was contextual. When I said 2 a.m., it's contextual to what Princess said. It was not something I said directly. Okay? When I talked about the passivity, it was never about the woman in terms of blaming her. I'm actually trying to tell men that when you do this, women do not like this because it doesn't make her feel safe because you're always saying yes. But you've taken every single point I've had and flipped it because you already have a bias. And you started from very, very early when you came into the conversation because you kept on interrupting because you couldn't wait. And usually I see this from people when they've already got an angle. I get it that you disagree with me. And that's why Ferry disagreed with me, Princess has disagreed with me. But the way you flipped it, you've made it into a warfare. And it's not a warfare because inevitably, half the things you said, I didn't say. Half the things you said, I did not say. You went completely left. And whatever beef you have with men, you need to have it with men. It's not with me. It's not me, because this conversation we're having, we're exchanging ideas, exchanging different thought processes, right? Different things we're talking about. And you took it literally to the furthest nth degree. And then you flipped it into you're blaming women. And I never did. And then and when you explained it, it still didn't make sense. How can you be blamed for something when I'm telling men you need to not be passive? And when I asked you about whether passivity is whether women want passive men, you said yes they do. And passive itself is a negative trait. And it's not even just about leadership. In any format, if I ask you and you're trying to be passive, this is not a positive trait. Being aggressive is not the positive trait. Being assertive is the positive trait. Being assertive is ability to be able to take account to your feelings as well as the other person's feelings and still be able to say what you need to say. So when you say passivity is a positive thing, it's because you've really got a point you're trying to prove.
I never said passivity was positive. Never said that.
I said don't unmute.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Don't unmute because you're not
unmute.
When you spoke, I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm not interrupting.
Don't unmute, Toto. I will remove you because I'm respectful.
Yeah, I'm dropping.
Toto, I don't want to hear it, bro. If you drop, then drop. Drop.
Now, how did we get here? Listen, TikTok on a Thursday is crazy. I can tell you that for free. Okay. Listen, today's topic we're talking about is, can men lead without controlling a woman? And I choose this on the back of a conversation we had last week on TikTok on Thursday night, where we spoke about women hate men that let them have their way. And of course, the title was a rage bait. It's on purpose. I understand. It's not fully explaining the whole thing. Just like when you say a title is, it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend. It's not the full scope of the title. You know what? But we understand that it's a rage bait. You're doing it on purpose. The whole point is you have to read a little bit more deeper. So I explained it, and I'll play a clip that will actually explain why I actually spoke about it. And I explained to the ladies what it was, which is why other ladies didn't argue with me as much later on. But this conversation went left. It went left because the young lady had an idea in her head already, and she couldn't let it go. She wanted to blame the man. She wanted the idea that I was blaming women for the fact that men are passive. And I was saying that men that are passive choose to be passive, and they shouldn't be passive. There's being a passive individual consistently is not good leadership. It's not going to win you any favors. It's not going to help you in your relationships. It's not going to help you in your business or in your work. But we were focusing on romantic aspects specifically. So let's play a little bit of a clip. I'm going to go back into it. But I'm going to have the panelists come on in a little bit later on. They're going to come and chop it up and give you guys your perspective. I've got another clip for the panel. But I wanted to dissect this really, really quickly with you guys as well. As I like to bring the carnage to you so you can enjoy the conversation and enjoy what we're having. And if you're in the chat, listen, make sure you leave a comment, leave a like on the video as well. We love having you guys here around, and like I said, these are the men's panels to be able to get you guys men's thoughts. All right, but let's just listen a bit earlier on, because let's scoot backwards, because this conversation went on for a good hour. So let's go back a little bit backwards. I'm going to try and skip parts so you don't hear.
So good points. I don't disagree with much what you said. What I will say is the aim, and of course the title is a rage bait, so successfully done what it's done. But what I was talking about is that women do hate men. Healthy women hate men who say yes to them all the time. I don't know a healthy woman yet that likes her man to say yes to every request and everything that she's ever suggested and says yes to. That's the aim I'm actually aiming at. So I don't know if you want to...
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a healthy woman that likes it when guys tell me yes every time. My name is Princess. I represent the women that only want to hit yes.
Even Princess doesn't like those men.
Do you mean that I want those men? Please send
you
them
don't even
to
like
me.
those men, Princess.
No,
you
please
don't even
send
see
them to
them.
me. No, please.
You
No,
don't
please.
even see them.
What do you mean?
See them. You don't.
I want to see them. I want to live with them. I want to marry them.
I also
Sorry.
I was just saying, like, I was just saying, I don't think that, again, this is attributed to just women. I think generally even men don't like women who say yes to everything.
I think that's most
women.
Sorry. Men. It's not a thing where it's like it can go both ways. I know it can, but I'm addressing women today. Well, I'm addressing men. I'm addressing men today. I'm actually this is actually a live for men to help them not be that man. But go on. I want to hear your perspective.
So just pause it there, just to make it clear as to what's happening here. I'm explaining to the men on TikTok that as a man, if you're always in a position of saying yes to a woman, you're going to find yourself in a very sticky position. What I mean by saying yes is, and I explained it to them as well on this live. I was saying that when you are a man, you're called to leadership, right? You have to have a level of boundaries. You've got to be able to say no. You've got to be able to have the ability to be able to say no. You know what I'm saying to you? I'm not saying say no for no sake. I'm saying you should be able to say no when it doesn't, benefit the relationship, doesn't benefit you, and doesn't benefit the other person, you should be able to say no. Now, if you're always saying yes and you're always saying yes, nobody likes a yes man. There is no woman out here. Well, like I said, the unhealthy women like a yes man, but a woman that's healthy doesn't want a yes man. It's because it comes with passivity. Being yes all the time comes with passivity. Right, so this is really important. What I was trying to explain to this particular lady in general, that's the point I'm trying to angle. So when I say women hate men, right, that let them have their way, yes, because again, the whole point is when someone can walk over you and they can get anything out of you without there being no pushback ever. This is not a pretty how do I say, it's not a pretty perspective. Right, for you, the man, when you can't say no, and for the lady too, who she knows that man will never say anything else but from yes, even when he should be at some points saying no, when it doesn't actually suit any of them. This is what I mean by that. Women will hate those kind of men, right? We all know passive men, okay, all right. We all know passive men, and they're not usually favored. Now we can say that there are some women who like that kind of woman, right? That kind of man. But there are women that like Blueface. Is that the one that we should all go into? You know what I mean? Like there are people that like criminals. Does that make this the norm? No, it's again, it presents to the unhealthiness of each individual person. As a man, I don't want a yes woman. Of course, I want a woman that is going to be malleable, that can be somebody that I can teach, somebody that can receive information, that can follow my lead. But I don't want a yes woman. I don't want a woman that anytime I say anything, she can't tell me no. She goes, yes, yes, yes. No, nobody likes that. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. And it's a big representation of poor boundaries. So listen to this. Sorry, I'm looking at my chart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I'm saying here is really, the yes to everything point. It's, what are we saying? We're saying you don't feel challenged in the relationship. If
Number one, I never made the point about not being challenged. It's not about being challenged necessarily. It's about being able to have somebody who also recognizes that this isn't beneficial for them. It's boundaries.
For example, your partner says yes to absolutely everything, and that can feel monotonous. It can feel like, there's no growth naturally. It can feel like it's default responsibility. It could actually be more labor on you if your partner says yes to everything, because it's kind of almost a weaponized incompetence. Like you can't really think it through. So you're just going to say yes because you think, she knows what she's talking about. So that.
Now let's pause right here, because she just said that the men that say yes all the time are potentially weaponizing incompetence. So me saying that women don't like these kind of men will be correct. Why would a woman want a man that is weaponizing incompetence? Now, I didn't say the weaponizing incompetence. She did. And I'm putting it out because we got to the end where she crashed out. This is why we're getting there.
That could actually be where the resentment is coming from, as opposed to just feeling like, the usual rhetoric, which is like, oh, we're just bored because you are a type of man that lets us have our way all the time. It could actually be like, I'm tired of thinking things through. I'm tired of being the one to have a plan, to know what to do on top of all the other expectations that's placed on me. So actually having someone who can be strategic, who can come with the ideas, who can challenge my current ideas, that is what feels like growth. This is not ascribed to the basics of things. We're talking about just generally someone who can lift that labor, which already there's an imbalance of because of the world we live in. Even having to think things through all the time and get it right and be the fixer, is really hard. So yeah, I don't blame women who HATE those sorts of men, because it's like more unpaid labor.
So women don't like this. We agree.
I don't.
Precisely my point.
I don't.
So at this point, we agree. So how does it that 30 minutes later, we're at a disagreement? Because I'm not going to say anything more. Like this is why I said, like, a lot of times when some people come at you, you can tell already that they don't want. They're not trying to understand you. They want to have a fight because she already made up her mind of what kind of man she thought I was, right? Or what aim I was coming at. She thought I was red pill. She called me red pill and everyone, right? So she already thinks I'm being red pill. So her mindset is, I'm going to be wrong already. But the reality is she comes into my same thought process, which is women don't like those kind of men. Now she added the other caveats, the weapon of incompetence, and you have to do more work, and So yes, the woman will. So how are we going to get to a disagreement? Because we said the same thing.
I'm not comprehending this.
Before Princess tries to derail it, this is precisely what I'm talking. You see,
I'm not even trying to derail.
You see how Toto took it. See how Toto still didn't want to take accountability for the ladies. She said, it said inevitably how she made it work for her was inevitably we must take on more of the emotional labor, because even if he says yes to everything, we're still taking on emotional labor. This is what I meant. This is why I said that men, if we say yes to everything you say, right, and we don't lead accordingly, we still get blamed. It doesn't matter how you flip it. Women will always come back round, and that's not all women. Women will always come back round to the fact that the man is the issue. And it's because men are called to be leaders. And so I'm telling the men, stop saying yes when you really mean no. You should be okay to say no when it's required time to say no. You should...
Just pause there again. So I've explained the no now, right? You should be able to say no when it's a required time to say no.
But you are attributing. Sorry. I didn't mean to jump in, but I just wanted to be clear on the point. Yeah, like I think this is the thing I'm saying. It's not to saying, no, just because, you feel that you're a leader and you're called to lead, therefore you need to kind of step up. This is the thing, right? What I'm saying is this. I find it really rare that there are men who don't really speak up in a relationship. That will be a very you problem, as in they as an individual. You will find that those sorts of men are saying yes and have these people-pleasing tendencies across all their different social interactions, whether it's with...
And what does that matter? So already she said that there's men that don't really exist. And the funny thing, that's what I'm trying to tell her, that they do exist in plenty, which is why we're doing a live. That's the whole reason why we're doing the live. Do you get what I'm saying to you? That's the whole reason why we're doing this video, so we can talk to the men. I'm not talking to women. I'm not saying women are bad. I'm not saying women are going to manipulate you. I'm not saying women are going to trample you. I'm saying that as a man, you can't afford to be passive. You can't. It's ugly, it's unattractive, and it actually does you more harm, because really you want to say no, but you end up saying yes. So you get resentful and you're going to attack that woman. That woman's not going to feel safe. This is actually me telling men to fix up, but she can't hear that, because all she wants to hear is women are being blamed, and women are not being blamed. I see my panel are coming through. So
their work, whether it's with their friendships, they might just be that guy. But that is not to say that is to do with the fact that they are called to be leaders or not. Again, that is not for me what is a gendered definition of leadership. Being able to say no. Most times you're getting men who are challenging pretty much everything down from what you're wearing to what you're thinking to what are we talking about? It's not, it's such a nuanced topic. We're talking about, men who might be saying no because you asked them for money. That was an example that was used earlier. And again, why is there a no? And, are you saying no because you don't want her to think that, especially if you have the means, are you saying no so that you don't have a partner who ends up being a quote unquote spoiled brat? Again, then that starts to infantilize your partner. Or are you saying no because you just have actual boundaries around how much money you're going to be spending in a month, for example? And that goes for anything, goes for yourself, goes for your friends, as it does for your partner. It's a personal values point, as opposed to trying to make the point to your partner that I am the leader here. I know what I'm doing here. I think in any kind of dynamic, you want to show your value to the other person, whether it's in friendships. It's all transactional. I mean, you can still love someone, but generally speaking, relationships are transactional to on some form. You give, you take. You give, you take. When it starts feeling one-sided, then there's a problem. So I don't see how this
Are there men out there, not even ones that you've dated? Do you believe there are men out there that take more than they give to women?
That take more than they give to women? Are there men out there that take more than they give? Absolutely, there are men out there that take more than they give. Most men take more than they give.
Okay, now, are there women who take more than they give to relationships with men?
Are there women that take more than they give? I personally don't see that. Because in situations,
and that's why we're having this conversation.
And I think the reason, but the reason is this.
That's why we're having a conversation.
Yeah. So
because
what
you can't see it. That's why we're having a conversation, because you can't see it. And this is why we're having this conversation. This is why I'm telling the men specifically.
I think the answer is yes.
That's why I'm telling the men specifically, because in reality there is a lot of women who can't see it. Because again, you don't date this kind of men.
We can't see it because you can't see it. Let me tell you what you can't see. You can't see the imbalance that already exists.
No, but then if you but I already agreed with you. Wait, Toto, I already agreed with you that there are men who look. I'm going to agree with you. Are there men that take more from women in relationships? Absolutely.
Most men do.
If you want to say most, that's up to you. Say most.
In fact, but there's data, but there's already data to show this.
I know. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is, and this is why some women have to be exposed to men. The reason why red pill exists, and I don't agree with everything they do. The reason why it exists is because there are men who are on that side of the spectrum, who are dating women who are taking more from them than they're giving. Until you go to listen to their story and hear them, you can't feel their pain. You don't have no empathy because your perspective is men do it more, and that's fine. I understand that. But when you start hearing the other side, this is why I'm talking to these men and saying, listen, if you go and date women who they're going to take more from you, they're going to always want you to say yes, you're going to die an early death in relationships, because relationships that shows that you don't have a respect for yourself. You should be able to say no. You should be able to.
Can I jump in?
Be comfortable.
Okay. Can I jump in?
No.
Can I jump in?
Hold on.
Okay.
You should be okay to say no. And when I say no, I'm not saying say no just for the sake of saying no. I'm saying to you, as I explained to Princess earlier on, there's a normal situation where something may happen. Let's say, for instance, there's a budget and the budget's about to go over, and you're supposed to be saying, you're sitting there, you're going, listen, our budget's £1,000 per month. She's like, no, let's go to 1,100. In your head, you know that your budget is 1,000. You can't go past that. But you'll say yes because you don't want to have the beef, and you don't want to have disunity in your relationship. And I'm trying to tell the men, no. When you always let her have her way in these situations, it will bite you in the ass. You know how I know? Because you just explained it. A couple of minutes ago, you explained it by saying,
Can I explain this? I'm trying to get here.
I promise you I'll explain. I will explain. I know your thing's a little bit delayed, so don't worry. So what I'm saying to you is, you just explained it a few minutes ago. You explained it in a way that you said, well, if the man's always saying yes, then actually what will end up happening is the lady will then actually have to do more emotional labor, which is what my precise point was saying, that as men, you're gonna get the blame at the end. So here's a key thing. As a leader, you have to know when is yes and when is no. As a leader, you have to understand that there are times where you say no and you might be a villain today, but you're going to be the hero tomorrow. And women do not like those men that say yes today and lose tomorrow. They don't like those men, because if they're always saying yes to now, they have to think long term. They have to think about their family, the future family trying to build. If this man's always saying yes, who else does he say yes to? How can he just say yes to everything? When will he make himself the priority? It is ugly for anybody to do it. But I'm saying specifically for the men, because I'm speaking to the men specifically today, that it's ugly when you do that, bro. That you can't say no. You don't know how to say, hold on, know what? Nah, that's not what is happening right now. This is the leadership. You know what I mean? Like and it always works against you as a man because it's self-betrayal. But I'll let you respond, and then I'm gonna go to Gracie.
Now, there's a last part of this before I get the panelists on. But this conversation has got to point. I've explained it now. I've now explained that it's not just no, but the no is about you being able to say no at appropriate times because you need to protect the relationship. Right? I give an example. There's a budget. You've got a budget that's set. You've set it for 1,000. Don't go beyond it. I've explained this now. So it's in fullest. Remember, we've gone from she agreed with me, right, to now going to a place now. She wants to fight me on leadership. And I'm like, okay, but she can't even see that there are some men that will get taken advantage of because that's not her worldview. And that's okay. But then you got to be open to seeing that. And I said, I don't even disagree with your viewpoint that maybe more men take advantage of women. I would even agree with you. Come on, let's agree and move forward. But she can't see that at this point because, again, the point is that she's locked into an idea. And this is why it becomes difficult in relationships for both men and women. When you're locked into an idea, this is why the red pill have an issue, because they get locked into an idea and they look at women as an op. And when you are I don't want to say she's a feminist because I think that's too easy of a blanket. Wherever her ideology is, it's almost, I don't like men. It almost feels like I don't like men, and men are always the evil people in the society, right? And so almost like anything has to be their issue. So it's going to be interesting because I'm going to ask her a question about this situation after. So this is last part. I'm getting the panelists on.
Can I chime in on that point as well?
You can after.
Right.
Out.
Oh, yeah, I went too far. Hold on.
Okay. So firstly, again, I know you're saying you're addressing this to men. And, I think it is a naturally undesirable trait, or it is a trait that would be frustrating for anybody, whether it's in a het relationship, a cis relationship or not, or whether it's in a friendship. If you have an individual who is that sort of careless to make such a decision about money, where you are on 1,000, whatever, you've got to, pay £1,000 tomorrow, and you don't actually have the money, but you go ahead and do it just because you're trying to walk on eggshells around saying no to your partner. Now, there's two things I want to say about that sort of dynamic where that might happen. So in one instance, we're saying you're dealing with an idiot, basically. Nobody likes an idiot. So that's not to do with leadership. If you're an idiot that can make that sort of thing, you are not a leader. So,
Well, let's pause it right there first and foremost. She's now terming these people as idiots. When I was saying that the men that do this thing, they don't know how to have boundaries. That's why they're saying yes all the time. She's now terming them as idiots. This is what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know what her beef is with men. I don't know what the beef is with men, but she got some beef with men.
it's, you have men and women who can be leaders. You have men and women who are not equipped to be leaders. Okay. So that is the intrinsic point. The sort of person you've just described is not a leader. So I don't really see the purpose in sort of drumming this into their head and to be this perspective. Women don't like that, thinking that will incentivize them to become leaders. That is not going to do.
I'm sorry. I'm not of the. You see, it's funny because she has a very similar point to some of the men in the red pill, that they start abandoning that men are leaders. I'm so sorry. There's no such thing. Even the crappiest of leaders of men, even though they're not built to be leaders, they're still leading in some shape or form. The moment that you start lying with a woman and start messing around with her, you end up leading that woman in some shape or form, whether it's very badly or whether it's very goodly. We can't actually escape this leadership aspect. The way that the world looks is because we're in leadership. Right, whether it's good or bad, we have to take the rain with the sunshine. Unfortunately, that's the thing as a man, isn't it? You have to take the rain and the sunshine. We do good, we do bad. You know what I'm saying to you? But in this aspect, I'm talking to men who are out there who are listening. There are men who are very passive. They're not mean, they're not nasty, but they're just passive. They're nice, but they're passive. And women know these men because they avoid them, right? And oftentimes they use them. Right? No offense. The world is there to be used. If you get used, you get used. The game is a game. It is what it is. Some people are being used for time. Some people are used for your emotions. Some people get used for your money. It is what it is. So my key thing is that I'm trying to address these men to say, hey, you have to have a backbone. If this is the reason why some of you are suffering, it's because you don't have a backbone and you let women have their way all the way through without when you know you disagree with something, right? You know that ice cream is bad for her stomach, but you say, you know what, you can have it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're not helping the situation. Your passivity is ugly. It's unattractive as a man. But I'm gonna let her finish and then we'll get the panel.
Do shit. For somebody like that, they just are not a leader. And it is the way of the world. Some will be leaders and some will not. Okay. And even the men, there are men that are just not cut out for this. Now, in most situations where you do find that a man is probably scrambling around just because he doesn't want to upset his missus, the chances are she has a higher social currency than he does. The chances are we've got Mr. 3 over 10 that somehow managed to bag his way through his funny jokes to get a Mrs. 9 over 10. Okay. And social currency exists, whether we like it or not. We've already talked about the imbalance of society. This is something that's patriarchal. It was designed by the men. So I'm not here to defend why that is a good thing or not. It is what it is, designed by.
This point aligns with red pill. I can't lie to you. This pill, you see, most people don't realize they have a lot more points that align with red pill, both women and men. When you really tell them, and that's why I said I don't agree with everything red pill does and everything they say and everything they do, but there's a lot of truth that they actually exist in. It's almost like giving someone a book of how to be how to be a player, right? The problem is that some people are very autistic with the way they do things. When I say autistic, well, I shouldn't say that. Let me change the wording. Some people are very literal. Like they can read the player book and do everything literally. Bad girl flowers, bad girl this, bad that. And it's like, it's not about the flowers. It's the emotion you're evicting in that person. The flowers are nice, but that person might not even like flowers. So then you go and buy flowers for her and you're like, I don't know why she doesn't like it, because she doesn't like flowers. You're not deep the principle. So when people are not actually self-aware and they're not very able to apply rules, but they apply it literally, then this is what happens. And it's the same thing here. So Red Pill have ideas that actually we speak about as men, we've always spoken about. It's not new. The Red Pill is just a label. We've discussed this in barbershops. You discuss this with friends. You discuss this with your associates. You've discussed this a lot of times. So what she's about to go into is the men that are actually, quote unquote, I don't want to say simping, she ain't said that, but the men that are falling prey to these situations are dating a woman that's far above them. Now, that's true to some degree, but not all degrees, because some men are not even dating people above them. They just believe that person is above them, right? And that is what's contributing towards the behavior that is not, that they're not able to have boundaries in a situation. So the last part of this.
Men. A woman's beauty, along with other things, have to do with her social currency, and a man's wealth and his kind of social standing and his career and where he stands in the society is what determines his own kind of social currency. Now, if he's managed to somehow slip through the net, he added a bit more on that CV than he thought they were going to scrutinize him on, and he managed to bag that person, he's going to have to work hard for it. If it means he has to work hard for it to keep that balance and keep that lady, he's going to have to do that. And that is the way of the world. Okay. That is what he has signed up for. Rarely do men find themselves in a situation where they're scrambling around for a woman. That's actually not down to how they feel about the woman. It's down to how they feel about themselves. Okay. So actually, I will be more concerned about the woman and why she decided to match up with such a person to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to let Gracie go.
Before Gracie goes, thank you for proving. Listen, I don't even rock with everything Red Pill says, but you just proved what Red Pill just said. That's part of Red Pill. And part of Red Pill is understanding how dating dynamics work. I don't disagree with anything you just said there, right? Apart from the very beginning part where it's not about leadership. If I'm talking to men and saying that I want to instruct them so they can be better leaders, everybody can be a better something. So when I'm instructing them, that's what we're doing right now. So if they don't understand that they're too malleable and too people pleasing, that's something they have to start working out. This is why I'm instructing those men.
But malleability and people pleasing is not to do with leadership. I have to say that because most women actually end up having to be but most women end up having to be malleable and people pleasing to get to where they are.
Toto, I sat here and listened to you. You don't have to say anything. You interrupted because you want to. I'm not interrupting you to speak. Hold on.
It's not interrupting, Kojo. I'm just making the point on what you just said.
No. Toto, stop. When you are talking, this is a respectful platform. It's not one of those platforms where we have fights here, you know. We all allow people to speak. We're all intellectuals here. You know, man and woman. I love when they have their perspective. But when someone's talking, wait. Like I've said it 2 or 3 times. So in respect to what I'm saying to you,
alas, my time is up. The boys are here. All right. So listen, look, I think this was a really good conversation that we had on TikTok, right? But it's going to lead into the conversation I'm going to have with the boys. I'm going to get their opinions really quickly, and then I'm going to actually give them the actual clip that they're going to listen to, because this actually is not the clip. There was a clip I wanted to actually play for them because it links into this topic we're talking about. It was actually a conversation with Nia Gonzalez on Dear Future Wifey. And when she speaks to Dear Future Wifey, she says about how she pushed for the engagement and how she pushed for them to move in. And guess what? It did not work out. You know why? Because whenever, and I know you're not going to like this. I know some people are not going to like this, but me, I'm out here to stand strong. In most cases, when a woman leaves a relationship, it goes down the hill. Call it ego of the man, call it patriarchy, call it whatever you want. But in this case, when women leave the relationship and try to push things forward before the man's ready, it's not going to work. It's that simple, right? And you know, I think this is very important for people to actually understand. And so I always say this, that as a man, your job is to direct and guide the relationship. The woman will guide the events that happen within that, but you are guiding the relationship. You're creating the parameters for how we move. You're creating the visions for how we go into, for what we're trying to achieve. You are helping us to navigate the course. And that is where most men should be. That's where all men should be. But that's where a lot of men are not sometimes. And when we abdicate that position, we get chaos. Call that patriarchy. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying to you? Call it patriarchy. But that's where we're at. But I want to get the boys' perspective on this. I'm sure they have their own opinions as well. But let me get the boys on, and we're going to chop up this conversation about leadership and control. But I'll get their opinions on this conversation I just witnessed on TikTok. I know they have some opinions on what they just heard. I'm gonna go Gus first. Gus, talk to me. I know you were listening from the back. What was your perspective? This is not even the main topic. We haven't even got there yet. We're about to get there. But what was your thoughts on this and what you heard in the conversation?
My mouth was just like I was messaging in the back. My mouth was open for like 3/4 of it because I was just wondering what is happening here. Like, I could try and hear where she's coming from, but there seems to be like major assumptions, and the examples, I'm like, this is not, in my mind, it's not fully adding up. So you can say 3 out of 10 bags a 9, but in my mind, I'm like, if a 3 out of 10 can bag a 9, is she a 9? Or maybe he's not a 3 out of 10. But that math doesn't often add up. Like, what metrics are you using to judge that he's a 3? Your 3 might not be somebody's 3. So there was just a lot of conclusions there, which I was just trying to even understand what the full thought process was. But I've not even managed to get all my thoughts in line, if I'm honest. But I'm eager to get into this. This sounds like a hot one. And yeah, leadership and control, all of these things, I think it's very, very much a critical conversation. I'm ready to get into it, man. But that sounded a bit wild. I would want to hear the rest of what she has to say.
I love that. Jeff, talk to me, man. What's your thoughts?
My thought was, like, where was she going with all of this word salad for me? It just sounded like she just wanted to argue in order to be right. That's why I took when I was listening to the conversation that was being had between you and her, Kojo. The fact of the matter is that much of the stuff that you were saying, she was saying, but saying in a different way, trying to disprove the concept of leadership. And the funny thing is, like the red pill, she is coming from a place of describing the way that dating dynamics work. Much like the red pill, the only difference is the red pill, they have a lot of unhealthy prescriptions, even though the descriptions, they tend to be mirroring in a line with a lot of what her worldview actually is. And I found it a little bit hypocritical for her to be talking about statistics. But how is it you're able to talk about quote unquote statistics, but then you're saying most men are takers? You're saying at one point you're saying, oh, most men are this, most men are that. But do you have any statistics to show for that? She never stated any of that. So to me, it tells me that she may have a confirmation bias, because the fact that she said, and I quote, that she doesn't see, most women being takers. And I would be in agreement to say that, hey, I don't believe that most women are takers. I wouldn't know. The funny thing is, though, when she's talking like this, it makes me think that there is a clear bias based by way of what she's been through. So I'm either thinking, has she been on a side where she's been in a privileged position to receive a lot of the giving and less of the taking, or has she been in a bad relationship, but now she's judging that of having that anecdotal experiences taught for her by a way of, because when she was challenging you, just interrupting you, like, there was no need for that. It was a calm, clear conversation. So sometimes people's behaviors, they talk a lot more for themselves. But that's what I just thought about it. Like, the whole, it's like you're agreeing with her about the concept of leadership. She's disagreeing with you, but saying exactly the same thing, just in a different way to disprove the concept of leadership. So that didn't make any sense to me.
Jeff? I'm sorry, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Jay?
Last week I said, Gus, welcome to the family. Be prepared for more. This is what I'm talking about. You ain't seen nothing yet, my bro. We're used to this. But even so, Coach, this was too much, man. Do you know what? I'll keep it short, yeah. I only have one thought process. And I'm going to assume as much as she did, yeah, because I can. She, in my opinion, with the energy that she gave you, Coach, she is the type of woman that can create a space where her man can become a yes man because he gets tired. That's my opinion there. And so therefore, this was a massive projection, even though you did not attack women whatsoever. You was just addressing the man and how the man can be better. So this is a perfect example of she's hearing through her feelings because she doesn't want to face herself as a character in what that can create, even though you never even went there. But I bet you she's had that discussion privately. That's me, bro.
Yeah. Well, this leads us into, I guess, into our next part of the conversation, because, like I said, I have a clip for you guys, a part of the clip, which was the Nia Gonzalez conversation, where she talks about leading the man into engagement and into moving in, right? And then we're going to discuss whether can men lead without controlling a woman. And I guess we've got to define what leadership is and what controlling is as well. So we'll do that in the beginning. But I'm going to play you guys a clip so you guys can be checked in with this conversation as well for the main topic today. Okay, let's present this clip for you guys. Here we go. Okay.
Alignment with your heart's desire, which is where cognitive dissonance comes into play. To elaborate more on that is this: whose idea was it to move in together?
Honestly, it was me. I was pushing to move in together. I was more so pushing for the engagement. I knew he wanted to get engaged. I know he wanted to be married, but it was definitely me who was more like, we have to be engaged before we get married. Not get married. We have to be engaged if we're going to move in together. Like, I at least want that. If we're, his parents were so adamant on us being married before making that step.
Right.
And I'm sure now he's probably, kicking himself in the butt. Like, I should have listened, but I mean, we all,
I think it's good that, we get an opportunity to learn from our decisions, learn from our mistakes. Like I said, you're only 31 years old. As the old folks say, just keep living. That's what I would say. Just keep living. But the reality, and I'm glad that you're giving voice to this, because he had influence around him. Parents that said, "Hey, you might want to be married before you start playing house," as we used to say. And then you say, "Well, no, we're going to move together." You admit that you pushed "let's live together," and he's like, "See." And the thing about it is this, and I want every man to understand this part. This is what leadership is. Leadership is saying, "Hey, I know you were pushing for us to move together, but no. You said you want a man of God. This is how a man of God does. I'm not shacking up with you." I created that as a moniker for my podcast to literally say, it's a fun way of saying, I know you're watching the podcast. A lot of people watch the podcast, but they don't make a commitment to just hit the free little thing to subscribe. And that's what we do in these relationships. We don't subscribe. We won't get married. We won't go to that next step, but we want all the benefits of it. We want to watch, entertain, do all the other stuff with the people we're dating, but then we don't want to make that full-time commitment. So it's interesting that that's how my podcast has started out. And then this is what your lived experience is. You said, "Hey, listen, his parents said don't do this. I know he's probably kicking himself in the butt for making that happen." What made you desire that, though? What made you desire? You said, "Hey, I know you want to marry me, but let's live together first."
Yeah. I just loved him.
You just want to be
I just wanted to be, I wanted to be in his skin. Like, so yeah, we moved in together, and it just seemed like we were on track to, we were talking about marriage. And at the time, we were so locked in, like, we're going to get married. So, we might skip a step, but it's going to happen. Yeah. So we really felt that way. And we were so, like I said, we were having those conversations about marriage, and it just felt like
felt right.
It felt right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like we were rushing it. And actually I tore my Achilles right before. So it kind
of. By the way, this is the lady that called off the engagement, that said she had a good man, but she called off the engagement because obviously some things were wrong, right? Yeah, I know, Gus, if you haven't heard the story, it's an interesting one. But so this scenario here, they moved in, they got engaged. It's a 4-year relationship. His parents said they should get married before they moved in. He didn't listen. He listened to her, and now 4 years in, they were engaged. But then she obviously called off the engagement because there were things that emotionally weren't working for them too, which she didn't really fully explain. But partly is because she felt like he wasn't emotionally being present because he was working so much and making a lot of money, but not necessarily, and paying the bills, but not necessarily being able to be emotionally present with her, all that kind of stuff, right? She didn't fully explain it because she didn't fully understand it. So, but I'm asking this question in a sense of that man, I believe, made a mistake. He did that Abraham, that Adam situation where, again, when I say not listening to women, it's what we said last week, it's not about not listening to women. When you know the truth and you know the direction you're supposed to go in, when you yield the leadership and you yield a decision to the woman, when you know the truth, this is a key component, right? You know the truth. This will always backfire in your face and you will always get the blame because she's sitting on the couch now giving us a sob story about this situation after everyone was blasting her. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership without control. Can a man lead without control? My boys, can a man lead without control? Maybe we should define what leadership is. Let me get everyone's quick definition of what leadership is. Gus, what's the definition of leadership? So that we know that we're talking on the same fashion and plane, because otherwise somebody will get on us.
For me, leadership is, let's already understand that in terms of, we're not talking about equality in terms of equal in value. That's not the topic. So people can get that conflated before people come to crucify anyone. It's not about value. Leadership is about hierarchy based on the role. So somebody has to be the authoritative person. So for me, that's what leadership comes down to. Who has the authoritative position in this place where, yes, it's a democracy, but somebody does have to be the vision setter in terms of big picture. Someone needs to take responsibility. Somebody needs to set pace for which direction we're going in. I think that's what leadership is. And then people chime in, but the overall direction, vision, strategy, and the grand scheme of things, and the management of responsibility, whether things go right or wrong, that's leadership, I would say. There only needs to be one person in that seat, like a proper person. But, the other people chime in.
Love that. I hear that. Jeff, quickly, what's your thought? What is your definition of leadership? Quick definition.
Okay, my definition of leadership is modeling of behaviors that influences action or the ability to take initiative to achieve said action by way of going first. You can break it down in the Hebrew: to lead, to guide, to shepherd. So it's always based upon the concept of direction. If you have two leaders, you're going to have two multiple directions, and that's going to create confusion. And normally the idea is to have one person. It doesn't mean that a leader doesn't take into consideration the thought process of other people, which is why there's a need for maybe delegation in terms of responsibility. But leadership ultimately is about the idea of going direction and taking responsibility by modeling of behaviors.
Jay, your definition of leadership, quickly.
Influence, wisdom, service or servanthood, servitude, love, grace, understanding, accountability, a lot of things that mix together. But what comes with that is, for me, understanding and choice. So if you're a man, let's say you are a leader, you embody that, but you're choosing who and what you're leading. And as a woman, you're choosing to be led. It's not something that's automatic, but it's just really a choice that we have to make in terms of, am I going to submit myself to A? And that goes both ways. As the Bible says, we are both submitting. As the man, you're submitting to that responsibility. As the woman, you're submitting to the direction, to the purpose that the man is going to lead you in.
I love that perspective. Now, boys, on this, the second part of this, though, is leadership without control. What is your definition of control here? Because I think this is very important. What is your definition of control? Because I think we have to differentiate the definition versus what the society has understood about what is control, which will cause probably the dichotomy of choice differences that happen. So I'm gonna go Jeff first. I'm gonna switch up a little bit. Jeff, control. What is the definition here of control in this aspect when talking about relations? What is the definition of control from your perspective?
I think it's good that you even talked about societal understanding of control. I think the issue is that there's a lot of fear surrounded about that. I think what's happening is, because of bad leadership or ineffective leadership, what tends to happen is that people assume that the idea of control is based by robbing someone of the autonomy to make choices and decisions. So, i.e., if we're saying men, if we're going by patriarchal terms or the patriarchy, men who had absolute power basically had all the say-so, had all the control, and women didn't have any say-so at all whatsoever. So that definition, it means that control, a woman hasn't got a right to basically choose differently or say differently, or her thoughts are not taken into consideration, especially in cultures where women are either seen and not heard. Whereas when we're talking about the control, it's just more so, I look at it from a point of focus. I look at it from a point of what is the direction that both of us have decided to go down because we're working together as a team. More so being in control of the narrative, being in control of the direction which we're going to, depending on the vision that has been set for where we're going as a relationship or family. That's how I will take it. But yes, society, I think, yes, based due to past injustices that have been done onto women, that's why it is seen in a very negative connotation.
I like it. Jay, your definition of then control then in this aspect?
So the first thing I'll say, every leader needs to have some degree of control. So let's not, make the word control evil. And I think I love what you're saying, bro, is that we really do have to get into our definitions, not even just for us, but for people in the chat, people we talk to, because of where we are in society. So I'll say there's three perspectives. So the first I'll say is the simple definition. I was writing notes before this, but control is the misuse of authority to limit another person's freedom, growth, or agency. So this does happen. The coercion, the force. On the other side, you may have fear of this type of control. From the biblical perspective, control manipulates the will. God honors the will, which goes hand in hand with my point about choice. So for me, if I pull it all together, control is not, should not, ought to not be about taking away your choice. It's just about creating a stable situation, a stable lane, a stable direction, a stable purpose. Someone has to do it, which is why you have ladies who say they're man, or there's certain men that can't do it, so they have to take control of the situation or the relationship and steer it. It's funny how it's not medieval then. Anyway, let me not cause trouble. It's not TikTok, so it's fine. But either way, whether it's the man or the woman, we can both abuse that. And that's because we misunderstand what it's supposed to be, and we use our fears or, what we've been through, all of that type of excuse to kind of push forward what is actually safe for us, but what is actually destructive for the relationship or marriage.
Definitely hear that. Gus, control for you?
For me, when I look at control, it's you are trying to limit somebody's choices, mostly to probably protect yourself in some kind of way. Like, you're essentially saying, how do I make sure she behaves in this way? For me, that's control, because you're actually seeking to think, okay, I'm analyzing this human being. I know that they have autonomy or they have freedom, and I'm trying to scheme in my mind to figure out how I can get her to only say yes because I want her to say yes. That for me is when it's control. So I would say, as a man, if you find yourself thinking a lot about control and like, how do I impact this person's choices? It's like trying to put like a dog on a leash. Dogs are put on leashes because the owners don't trust them to act properly. So when you're thinking that way, it's like that's like a invisible leash that you're trying to put. And that's when I would say it's control. But if you think of like a dog owner, when they have like, the dog walking around freely, oftentimes that sense of, there's a sense of trust. Like you get the feeling that, oh, they trust their animal, that, it's fine. So I'd say when it comes to men and women, it's the same thing. Like if you're feeling like, I'm not trying to think about how to control her actions, I'm more so reactive to what she does, then it's not control. It's more so management, which is what I think I said last week. As a man, you're essentially managing things because you can't control people. So the best thing is to pick somebody who doesn't need extreme management and extreme leashing, and then you should be fine.
Also, to add to your point, Kojo, I think if you'd also, just to add to that, like Jay said, based upon people's previous experiences, the word control is neither a good or bad word. It's neutral. It just depends on how you look at it. If I say, you know what, men need to have self-control, that's a good thing. If I say men to be in mastery or have, like, to Gus's point, be managers or stewards even, and then pick someone who mirrors that type of stewardship by way of their own actions, that they are able to control themselves, it's a bad thing. A lot of people, they assume that when we talk about control, they mean be coercive of the person or be manipulative. No, that's not it. God does not allow us. Think about it. God, the all-powerful God, he gives us free will. He chooses to allow us to do what we want to do. So how much more so we as men, we do not control women. It's about being in control of the situation, because it's about protection in that context of leadership versus trying to manipulate someone to your own end to treat like a child. But again, people have bad takes regarding previous experiences as to what's been done unto them based by what has happened in childhood or relationships.
All right, so let me be cheeky then. Let me be cheeky now then. Since that young lady, Nia Gonzalez, said that she was the one leading the engagement and she led them moving into a house, if the man had more control, would this situation have turned out differently? Yes, no, take it how you want to take it. I would love to hear some thoughts and opinions. Of course, you can talk about the video, but I'm just throwing a wild question out there. If he had more control, would that have been that situation in that instance? You know what I mean? Like, would that have been the same instance? Before I come to you, Jeff, I'm going to go to someone else. Gus?
I wouldn't say control was the word. I would say assertiveness. And in a way, it's like, I would say control is mostly control when you're trying to control somebody else's choices. But if you're managing your own and you're like, do you know what? I know you want this. I personally do not stand by these values. I will not do this. Some people might be like, oh, he's being controlling. He's not. I'm exercising my value. I'm exercising my right to make a decision for my life. And I'm choosing not to move in. Yes, it forces you to now not live with me, but I've not forced you to do that. If you wanted to move into that flat, you still can, babes, by yourself. I'm not controlling you. That's now your own. But if now, so I also can't be, shackled to not make my value decisions because you want things to happen, because then that then becomes control, because then my choice is being affected directly by you. So I would say he didn't need more control. All he needed to do is to be assertive and to establish his values. However, because we don't know the full context, I don't know what his values are. So if his values actually align with her, he didn't need to do anything other than move in and bite the bullet, however it falls.
Well, his parents' values were not in alignment. The parents told him to get married first, and he said he wanted to get married. She actually said that he wanted to get married first, but she said she wanted to be engaged before moving in. So they ended up engaging before they moved in.
Right, yeah. Then that changes my answer. He needed to have put his foot down. He sounds like he has no backbone. This just sounds like a guy with no backbone. You can't say, I want black, and then she says, I want white. It's like, okay, babe, I want white too. That's finished.
But he didn't want to be controlling. So, he thought, why not go with her idea? Because, technically, it's not a bad idea. We move in, we're engaged, we'll still get married. Did he do anything wrong here? Really and truly? As a leader?
Wherever he is today, I would love to ask him, but I didn't see him on the couch.
He's not there. Jeff.
If the man had more control of the situation, he wouldn't have even been there to begin with. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but let's be real. I think the fact that the woman was the one doing the whole lot of talking, basically be the one to end, the fact that the parents were saying, oh, they had these values, that means clearly the guy did not share the same values. He had his own idea how he wanted to do things, but clearly he did not know how to advocate for himself and was passive. So if he had a bit more self-control, able to master himself and have more backbone and assert his wants, needs, and desires, chances are he would have been there would have been an impasse. So the impasse would have been, listen, I know you want me to move in, but this is my values. I can't do that. And you stand firm. You should have stood firm on that situation rather than being passive. So I think and I think not to be unreasonable, it's okay for men to change their mind or to have compromise, but it's when you have hidden expectations, when I don't really want to do this, and I'm only doing it because I want to basically keep the peace. I want to make her happy at the cost of my own. You do that enough times, you're going to have self-resentment because you're abandoning yourself in order to please somebody else. So clearly, from looks of things, she ain't happy about the fact that all this has led to the relationship being what it is. So from my viewpoint, I would say that they were not aligned in terms of values. So if that be the case, maybe I'm being too extreme when I say it, but they shouldn't have even been there to begin with. If he had actually opened his mouth and maybe said what he actually wanted, rather than just simply going along just to simply keep the peace. Because as men, we can't, as you said, culture, we can't be passive we can't be passive to keep the peace. We have to also lead in the cultivating of said peace in the relationship.
Some points are being made. Jay, leadership without control here in this instance, was it, you know, if you had more control, would you have been in a situation, or is that wrong to think that?
So to echo what Gus realized and Jeff was talking about, for me, my focus is on having control of himself and the discipline and the wisdom to come with it. The way I look at this, and I've listened to the interview as well, some more context, Gus, her family, I think they're Christians, but, you know, they wasn't really bothered about, you know, whether she lives with her man or whoever. What I'm also going to say, they're probably aware of how much of a leader she is in terms of how she does things. When it comes to him, traditional Christian home, as Cole just said, they wanted him to do it the right way. So the question is, well, in their dynamic, first of all, how did they even choose each other? Because it seemed like they wasn't really equally yoked anyway. But even if they did, how did they get down the line 4 years for him to go with what evidently he's now paying for? And so where I always land, for people who know or heard me for years, is that he never had leadership from day one. That to me is the foundation of it. He never had it from day one. And this is, I can't remember the girl who was speaking in the beginning, Coach, when you were playing the videos. But this is kind of the point that she's missing, because she's thinking it can only be the man is the problem, and because of what he lacks. We don't know if this guy lacks anything. What we do know is that he made a choice to acquiesce. And sometimes guys do that because, why not? It's not a big deal. I don't see an issue with it. Oh, okay, let's go. And there was an added thing that sometimes a lot of people don't realize. Because she is so on it, because she is so focused, and she left her state to go and live with him, by the way. In his mind, because she wants this so much, everything's going to be all right. I don't think people understand how much that kind of settles worries and different things that happen. So I'll even contradict myself and say it may not even be that he lacked leadership 100%, but he felt a sense of safety because she was so gung-ho with willing to do this, which happens a lot, by the way. And like you were saying, Coach, I think like you were saying to the lady, on the flip side though, eventually when things go wrong, it's only one person that gets the blame, which is why we need to have that wisdom from the very, very beginning. And I was talking with the guys offline last week, but I've said this for the past couple of years on Coach's channel. I've been not in that situation, but I've been in similar situations, right? In fact, I've been in a situation where a lady has asked, why don't we live together? Why am I around in a house more and all this type of stuff? And what I'll say is, where I didn't see this at the time, but where I have relinquished leadership and I've just gone with what the lady, where she wanted us to go in terms of, you know, let's say this type of topic, it always has crash and burned. Always has crash and burned. But the moment I put my foot down and I said, this is the way we're going to go, all of a sudden those relationships stuff become more healthy. The question is whether they are able to stand in that themselves, which that's another topic. I don't know if we'll get into or not, but that's another topic. But for me, yeah, there is a lot going on here. But like Gus was saying, if he was here, we would ask him some serious questions just to understand more of where he was coming from. But ultimately, he should have stood his ground, because if he didn't bring it up, then that shouldn't have been a thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing here, right? So when we talk about things like, as a man, you've got to be able to have the ability to say, no, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. Now look what is happening. You're now being blamed, you know. You're now being blamed. You're now being blamed, saying you haven't done X, Y, and Z because you're in this position. Your parents told you no, you didn't listen. You went to go and follow the girl. And now we're in this situation. And I think, and I say this to say that when the patriarchal world, which will never change, it will be patriarchal. It will most likely always be patriarchal because it was in the beginning in the garden to now when the fall of man happened. So it's not going to change. It's a curse of man. You understand what I'm saying to you? Right? So in that particular perspective, when you abdicate your position as a man, as the leader, and you abdicate your right to make choices and guide the relationship, it's gonna crash and burn a lot of times. You see, and this is why, you know, I'm gonna say something controversial. It's not that controversial, to be honest. I'll say what I said earlier on, which is, and this is something that I learned maybe from my dad. Some of the regrets that he had was, there's times when I gave in to your mom, I should have given in. And when he used to tell me that, I used to be like, come on, bro, man, that don't make no sense, bro. Like, because you know, your mom, you're a kin, you know, you and your mom are like that. You know what I'm saying to you? Until you become a man, and then you see for your own eyes what it means. It means there are situations where you have to be a villain. You have to be. You're gonna say no to something, or this we can't execute this right now. This can't run at this moment, or we can't do this thing, and it's gonna look like you are controlling. You are a bastard. You are the bad guy. You are not nice, right? But if you give in and it fails, I will promise you, and I've witnessed it. I've actually seen it. I've actually done it myself, so I know. When it fails, the person goes and goes, what happened? Why didn't you say anything? I did. But you were expecting me, so they were expecting me to take control. So this thing will always backfire on you as a man. And this is why I said, like, this scenario is a very poignant example that it always works against you as a leader. But we're asking the question, can men lead without the control, which you guys have been asking? So tell me a little bit more about this leadership for man then. Gus, when you're thinking about leadership for men in relationship, if a man is not supposed to be quote unquote controlling, then how is he supposed to quote unquote get the woman on board? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? You like, if he wants to go left and she wants to go right, how is he supposed to do anything then? Because it can look like he's being controlling by saying we're going left. How is he supposed to do that? Talk to me, Gus.
So for me, like these are principles that I even share on my Instagram, right? And I always say the task determines the tool. I will forever say this. When a painter's painting, he doesn't reach down to be like, oh, so where's the drill? What's drilling got to do with the painting? It doesn't go. But the person doing construction, he's not looking for a paintbrush. The issue that I'm seeing with men is it starts from the period where they're single already. I've seen this paintbrush. This paintbrush is cute, but I'm trying to do construction. But because the paintbrush is really nice, I'm going to figure out how to take this paintbrush by force and make it do some drilling. That's what I'm seeing in relationships. So leadership, essentially, as a man, you should be able to throw the vision out there to a woman, ask her, what's your thoughts about this? Where do you see yourself in this vision? Listen to what she's saying. Does she sound like she's a hand and glove fit for your path and your journey? Yes. Then two can walk together. Why? Because they are agreed. But I think there's a lot of people picking somebody and they don't even fit the task. And then when you're now trying to do the task, how can it happen? That's when you're trying to say right and they saying left. Most likely your vision is not aligned. Therefore, they can't even understand the logic of why right makes sense. They just don't get it. So a man who's very much like, let's save, we're going to be a multi-millionaires in the next 2 years. But the woman's like, I like lifestyle. The decision-making that you make at every single junction will always be opposite. So as a man, I don't think you can lead in that situation. At that point, it's like control is your only choice. But if you control, now you're not leading like Christ. So I would say that I'd learn like to say this, but I'd want to say to the guy, you're finished, bro. That's what I would say to my close bros. I would say, you're finished, bro. Like, this is an unwinnable war. You don't have the ammo to finish this fight. And I think, like you said, the person then, like for the women, they end up having the ammo. They have maximum bullets and they can fire it at will and they will always land and they will have to stick on you.
Jeff, how do you win that battle? Huh? Is there winning that battle? Is there even a battle to face? How do we handle this situation?
You ever heard the saying, you may win the battle, but you lose the war? Don't put yourself in that situation, my friend. Don't. And the reason why what they need to be doing is looking for their mirror. Number one, when it comes to the idea of leadership is also determined by patterns of behavior, which is established ahead of time when you are single. And you have to show that through your fruits of your labor. Evidence. Example, when you go into a job, what do? You have your CV. Your CV shows historical accounts of things that you have done over time, patterns of behavior. So that is able to garner trust when you're basically going to go for your interview to get the job. Same thing when you're being in a relationship with a girl. She's taking the time to get to know you as you're taking the time to get to know her. And she will see by way how you live your life, how in your element, friends, family, strangers, and she'll look at your patterns of behavior. Does that match what she wants? Does she match what you want? Both of you have to be mirrors of each other. And that's even biblical when you think about it, because when you look back at in the book of Genesis, when Adam, he was able to recognize Eve and say, now this is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, reflecting what he is, basically. So pick somebody that is your mirror, so that we don't have to be doing so much fighting, because she is aligned to your vision as to what it is you're looking to do. It doesn't mean that she's not going to speak up. Trust, she will speak up, but more likely you'll be able to communicate your perspective, you'll be able to communicate your vision as to how you see things going, and she can also add to that, like Gus saying, ask her questions and also give her, you just and like Christ, you give that person freedom. When you're with someone where you feel like you have to prove yourself, which is why men should not be in a relationship where they need to constantly prove themselves or validate themselves towards a woman, where they feel they have to conquer a woman before she's able to get on that type of time. That'll be halava. I'm telling you, if you are with a woman where you feel like, unless she got the fear of God in you, you are cooked. You are cooked, flambéed. Do not be with someone that doesn't respect you. But if you don't respect you, don't expect a woman to respect you. Point blank, period. Cooked.
Yeah. But God. Yes, Jay.
So, let me say what I wrote down here. True leadership doesn't cage people. It covers, guides, and empowers them. And when you think about a Christ-like way of leadership, the way that we're supposed to do things, we're supposed to be empowering a woman. That's what the Word of God asks us to do, right? And by the way, what Gus was even speaking about before was exactly what Proverbs 31 is, in terms of how we're meant to relate to each other, the man and the woman. As I always say, read from verse 1, not just from verse 9 onwards. So for me, it's not about control. Yes, there's influence, but it's about empowering. And you're empowering in the direction, you're empowering within the purpose, but you have to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations, because we're human beings. Our behaviors can definitely get out of line and rock the boat, sometimes destroy the ship. And you need to have some of those conversations to kind of say, no, we need to get back on track. Now, the second point I was going to make, right? Let me see if I remember it. So I can't remember. Let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. But what we tend to see, and it is across the board, and it goes hand in hand with what I realized when I was relinquishing leadership. There's a lot of people who want the authority without the responsibility and or without the accountability. And this is what a lot of men are suffering from. Now, in this situation, because we're going back to the video, she was the authority in that situation. She was leading the way. But you can see when it comes to the aftermath, there is no accountability. I know, Cole, you made videos about that, right? There is no accountability. Now she's doing sub-story world tour, as you like. You know, he's the type of guy, I don't think he was on social media like that anyway, but he's just there. So you can see it's now turned into, I mean, she didn't anticipate it to go viral. Her excuse, not on the show, but not on Laterra's show, and his wife's show now, let me get that correct. Her viewpoint was, I share everything, so why won't I share this? So I'm not saying she expected it to go viral, but you can see she's now landing softly. In fact, she's 31, right? So her viewpoint on some of the interviews was, I'm 31. I've got all this life to live. I'm going to be fine. Whereas this man is now devastated because his whole life changed to accommodate something that she wanted. To me, that's an example of things that have happened in my life. And when it flips around to who gets to blame, and that's because there's a lot of people who want the authority without the accountability, without the responsibility, and that's a very dangerous place to be in. Now, this is why you have some people in the red pill space. This is why you have some men who are trying to overcompensate. What we're trying to say is, heal, my bro. Come out of that, my bro. And also make better choices because of your healing and your guidance and your understanding. Because we should never be in that place, because that overcompensation will always create problems, because it's coming from a place of fear, and you're going to end up controlling instead of leading through influence. You will even be happier as a person when you're leading through influence, because of who you are, who your actual identity is, your direction. And most importantly, in fact, one of the things I forgot to say when it comes to leadership, as a leader, you're bearing fruit. Whoever you're leading should be able to see at different steps. Yes, we can all make mistakes. And that's the point, whether the lady, if we do make a mistake, how she's going to respond. But she should be able to see that we're bearing fruit, that good things are happening when she does listen to us, even when she disagrees. But all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you was right. Oh my gosh, this is even better than I thought it would be. Oh my gosh, babes. Oh my gosh. It happens. And by the way, as men as well, also allow us to feel that way about our missus. Allow ourselves to actually see. Even making a decision says, oh, do you know what, babe? I like what you said. Do you know what? Let me consider what you're saying. And then allowing the amazing things to come from it. All that is wonderful stuff. That doesn't relinquish your leadership. That actually makes you a better leader, because you're trying to hear and consider the people that you're leading. But that is another conversation, because some people don't know how to do that. They think, if I'm making a decision, or if you're going with my idea, I'm taking over.
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, quickly before I hand it back to Gus again. I think this, for me personally, on this situation, I think, no, not I think, I keep saying I think, because I know what I'm going to do. But for me personally, I can't choose a woman that's not on my program. And that sounds like a red pill statement, but let me just put it this way. I don't choose anybody that wouldn't follow me in the beginning. You know what I'm saying to you? And that person that's going to follow me already has a level of admiration and respect for me as a person. This makes it easier to have influence. Because one thing I'm going to do is influence. Okay? If I can influence Annette, I can influence you. Okay? And vice versa, right? So my key thing is, number one, so I'm not about to keep your mouth shut when you speak and tell me something. I'm definitely going to consider it. There ain't no way. Because I made sure I chose a wise woman. I didn't choose no fool to be my partner. I'm not looking for somebody who I can drag along with me and they don't say anything. No, I chose somebody who's wise and who's smart. So I'm going to consider your thoughts. And my kind of thing is, there are key aspects of relationships, right, that need certain moments in your relationship that require there to be an authoritarian type of leadership. And it's not often. The most situations in their life are going to be democratic. Where do you want to live? Unless God tells me specifically the area, and God can, by the way, because God be doing some stuff. Okay, all right. If He tells me specifically, I'm in Birmingham. If He says you have to be in London, there is no. We can discuss it. But babe, I'm going to say this now. This is one of my rules that people know when they date me is me. When I say that God has told me I'm going that direction, I'm not going to fight you on any other way. We are only going one place. We are going towards the direction that God has called me to. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So for me personally, when it comes to those kind of situations where you're in two formats, I think the key thing is listening first. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear what you're going to say. And I'm going to put my point across and say, this is my thing. Now, it depends how strongly I feel about the situation. It really does. You know what I'm saying to you? If I have forthright vision to what I'm seeing, if I see that moving to London is actually detrimental, I'm not moving to London. It's detrimental. And we can argue and hear a fight and I hear it, but I know that if I give in this moment, this will come back to me and to you. So I have to put my foot down in this situation. But in most situations, it won't be like that. You know what I'm saying to you? It won't even be. You would even advocate the delegate. You delegate the kids where they go to school. Baby girl, I'm not even thinking about where to go to school. Where you want to go to school? Let's think about a good school for them to go to. I'm about to war with you. What paint do you want in the house? I honestly, as long as it's not terracotta, I'm good, blood. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, it could be cool. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm wearing a terracotta top. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. Like, we're not gonna wrestle about those things. You want a 40-inch screen TV? I want a 45 one. I'm not about to wrestle with you over that the size of the screen or TV. It's irrelevant to what the larger things that are happening. But the relationship guidance, the direction, I would also my number one first of all, which I didn't say, and maybe I'll jump off this so that Gus can jump on, is this is where God comes in. Because honestly, there are things that I don't want to make I always forget his name, Ruth's husband's name. I always forget his name. When he moved them to the land of Moabites, they know they should have never been at Moab. You're not supposed to be in Moab, right? That move to Moab cost them. You get me? So was it no, not the one. The husband of Ruth, not Ruth. Naomi. Apologies, you're right, it is Boaz. But the husband of Naomi, they moved to Moab. Then he died, then the sons died. And whenever I read that scripture, I think to myself, why did you move to Moab? I know there was a famine, but you moved to a land that is against the people of God. This is not where you're supposed to be, right? And then they got cleared off, and it was Naomi, Ruth, and Ophelia. I think that's her name, was or whatever. And so they were left. So again, taking decisions which are major for me, the way I live my single life is I'm always asking God. So this shouldn't change when I get into a marriage, that when something big comes up, I'm not asking God. And in this household, God is the final say. I'm not even the final say. If he says that your wife is right, my fair, let me humble myself. Baby, you are right. I asked the Lord, he said we're going right. We're going right. Gus, let me hand it off to you. Leadership in that aspect. I mentioned a God perspective. How does that play a role in your eyes in terms of leadership for men and guiding their home and guiding their partners?
So, I mean, it's when you talked about the whole Moab move, right? My mind went straight to Lot. Lot and his family, right? You as a man, which takes me back to my point around management. When you understand the bigger vision, the Bible says, like, where there's no vision, people perish. So when you understand the bigger vision, the vision dictates to you the level of risk of every decision. So move to Moab might not be that risky for every family. Some families might thrive by moving to Moab. Some families might not, depending on what the overall vision is. So for me, I think the role of a man is the point where you need to essentially exercise a level of control is when you can see the risk to the family and the vision is high. That's when you have to prevent the actions from happening. And it can be seen as if a man's being controlling. But when you look at parents literally pull their children away from fire. They're not like, oh, I want to give my child freedom. There's no parent that gets awarded a Nobel Prize, when the child walks into the fire, and it's like, oh, congratulations to you. You're the most, supportive parent ever. Because the point is actually your lack of preventing them from doing this caused them harm, and you get blamed for it. So I would say, as a man, when you look at Lot and his family, in one text it says Lot chose to pitch his tent towards Sodom. By the next chapter, the boss man is in Sodom, like he's inside the city. And then when you look at how the story ends, he loses his wife because of being in Sodom. Do you get what I mean? And his daughters end up doing a madness even after they survived. So there's still consequences that he paid even after his wife died, and he kept his daughters. I think his daughters end up sleeping with him. Like, the story was just madness. Could all of this have been prevented if they were never in Sodom? 100%. Because this wasn't happening in Abraham's family. So for me, the key thing is, as a man, the difficulty of making these decisions sometimes is that you might continuously be seen as a villain. Because think about it, nobody really appreciates your wisdom until they see you basically save them from the mess. So the fact that they never got into a mess, whatever they experience, they might just still grumble and be like, oh, it would have been better if this happened. It would have been better if that happened. Why? Because you actually already saved them from the thing that would have been way worse. So I think as a man, this is why it's important for you to be in tune with God and only with God, and seek to please God and just trust in God. Because really, until you're saving people from actual mess, you might be seen as the perpetual villain.
You know what's so funny what you said? It's so funny because, interesting enough, sometimes you have to let people fail in accordance to what you're saying. Sometimes you have to say it and say, you know what? I believe this is the direction, but you go for it. And when they fail, and this is be real, when they fail, just like when we do with God, and God says, don't go there, but you know what, if you want to go, I'm gonna let you go. And when you get beaten up, what happens? You come right back, you say, God, my bad. next time I'm not going to argue with you again. Sometimes you have to allow people to fail to see the wisdom in its fullest measure. You understand? So yes, I definitely hear that. And I think my final point on this before I pass it to Jeff then is that I think as a leader of my home, I have already cultivated an aspect of prayer, spending time with the Lord, asking for direction and guidance on where I'm going. This should be a house cultivation. The house should never be in a situation where the woman or the man is making major decisions and we've not consulted God. That makes no sense. If I've cultivated myself appropriately and spent time with God, I've cultivated in a way of saying I surrender to whatever God says in my single life. So when I get married, that's the same way that I lead. It's like there are other things yet we will discuss this, we can that. But this one here, I foresee danger. But let's ask God first. Let's see what He's saying. And that's how she should also operate, because that's how I operate. And that influence should be rubbing off on you by now. If not, I need to question myself as a leader. Because what was I doing? Who did I pick? Maybe I picked the construction worker and not the painter. Jeff, yeah, go for it.
It's funny how you guys are even talking about the whole situation with, Boaz and also the Moabites. I was even thinking about the situation that was going on with Moses, the fact that he was leading his Israelites out of Egypt, and the Israelites, they were still complaining, and yet they couldn't see what was going to happen until after they had to deal with a lot of punishment from God. So sometimes it's true. At times, you're going to have to let people hang themselves before they actually learn their lesson, and then they will come back to the original template of what was set. I think leadership is so important as guys for men, because to me, I see it as ministry. I see it as more than just simply the title, but the responsibility that comes along with it, because it's a burden that we take to carry for the people that we love at the end of the day. And it's meant to be something that is done from a place of love, done from a place also from foresight. Now, when I think about, the video of that woman, I'm like, maybe the guy had foresight, but the trouble is he never advocated and never spoke up. As leaders, we are called to have at least not. Sometimes when we make decisions, we make them in hindsight, when really it's foresight, thinking ahead of what could potentially happen, so that we're able to make the best choices. And that's why we have to consult with God. We have to ask God, is this where I'm supposed to go? What would you want me to do in this situation? Actually having clear communication, our daily word, and actually applying His principles day by day. And it's true that we cannot be people that are passive in this, because passivity is just another extreme. If coercion is an extreme, passivity is also an extreme too. The balance is definitely self-control, which is the fruit of the Holy Spirit. A lot of men, they become very passive because they think by doing it, they trade that short-term peace for long-term chaos. And I've been in relationships where I was passive because I thought all I had to do was, whatever she wants, hey, happy wife, happy life, innit? Happy no matter what, even though I'm riding the storm of chaos, rather than actually having a sense of structure to say, no, I think differently. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. And the fact is, the more you are passive, the less likely you're able to have some form of intimacy in the relationship, because the woman is not able to get your mind, get your understanding. So how can you really feel protected if you're always saying yes to everything? Because just like men are not perfect, women cannot be perfect with every decision that they make. And leadership is going to be tested. It's just a part of life. It's going to be tested. It's just going to be, and it has to be. So if you're someone that just wants to basically tuck your tail and not stand up for what it is that you believe in, how can the woman trust in your decision making if you just simply say whatever it is? You're just abdicating, because when it comes to maybe where you're going to take your kids to school, how you're supposed to raise the children, what church are we going to go to, what restaurant are we going to go to, what car are you looking to buy, what house are you going to get? You leave everything in charge of the woman. Everything. It's not a collaborative effort at that point. You're just simply being lazy and and then you wonder why is she tripping for? I'm allowing her to do what she wants to do. Well, basically being like a doormat, not saying anything. So I am 100% in agreement, and that's not how even Christ operates, because we have a choice as to whether or not what we choose to do, especially God giving us the free will to make these choices and decisions. But when we abdicate from that, same way how Adam did, he was passive, he passed the buck. Oh, the woman you gave me did this, even though it was his responsibility to take care of Eve, because God gave Eve to him as a gift. So that's what I think.
Master J.
Remind me of the question, bro.
I was just talking about leadership and God being involved in decision making, and how does that play a role? You know, how does God influence our leadership in terms of leading a woman?
One thing I'll say something that's a bit different from what the guys have said. What he tells us, he can also tell our women, and vice versa. So the consultation isn't always just going to be download straight to us, right? It's one family. The Bible really shows us how important a family is in God's eyes, to the point where if we fail at it, if we mistreat it, it will affect other things that we're doing around us, whether that be our business, other blessings that are meant to come, whatever the case may be. So remember, it's a three-way situation, not just a two-way, not just between us and God. Yes, there is a hierarchy, but remember, it's not just God and then it stops with us. It's everyone who's involved. And obviously when you have kids, you know, they get what's coming through you as well. So that's one aspect to really think about. But just like the guys have said already, when you boil it down to being practical, that prayer life, that reading life, that wisdom that comes with it, that understanding, let your missus see this is what you do. Talk to her from the very beginning that this is the way we're going to do things together. A lot of us don't do that, to be honest with you. We just relationship, but we you know, even as Christians, this is not what we do. It's not a factor. It's not a foundation. It's not something that is consistently there. Yeah, sometimes you both will fall off. As individuals, you fall off. It does happen. It happens a lot. But ultimately, you're still going to go back to what is your true foundation. Because ultimately, she needs to see that in you. And she needs to see what God is doing in you anyway, for her to feel whatever she needs to feel. However, I'm also going to say that doesn't absolve her of the responsibility that she needs to have upon herself. But remember, it's teamwork. It's a partnership. We can't be asking someone else to do something that we're not doing ourselves in polarity, which is why it's so different. And what I'll say is when you do create, in fact, I'm not even going to say create a relationship with God. It's already there for us to take. So when we do reach out and take it and say, Lord, we want this type of relationship with you, we need to also pay attention to, is the woman that we're bringing into our lives appreciative of that? Is this even what she wants? Does she even know what this means? Because ultimately, we can't end up like Adam. We can't end up like Adam. Because God didn't move until it was Adam that ate, right? And when you really think about it, yes, he punished everyone, but he did not move until Adam ate the apple, as Jeff was saying. So there is an aspect there that we do need to think about. We can, as I used last week as well, the Nabal and Abigail story, right? We know that it was because of his wife that the whole compound everywhere wasn't killed. And that's because he couldn't see what God is doing in that situation. She could, but not him. And this is where our relationship with Christ in terms of leadership is so key. And I know, look, people believe in what they believe. You know, there's no whatever the case may be. And they can get on with life, sometimes successful, sometimes not. Even in our house, even in the kingdom, things can go great, things can't, right? But at least what we're talking about is, for those who want it, make sure you reach out for it and you grab onto it and you hold on to it for dear life. Because quite often, that's the only thing you have left when everything else is not working.
This is a real deep. It's a real deep. Yes, it's deep. And I think, again, so this comes, you know, I keep hearing the word influence. Maybe that's the better word than control, right? So in that particular aspect of leadership, and I love what you're saying as well, guys. And I think that this, like I said, it is something that is cultivated in your singledom. You know, for us as men, I think your leadership abilities are cultivated in your single life. Your ability to be decisive and take action is cultivated in that singledom, which is why the single life is actually the training before the match takes place, right? And so I think for, like, we were going back to that video, right? That gentleman there, right? I mean, that was me when I was probably like 23, 24. I ain't gonna hold you. I probably would have done, maybe not moved in, but there would have been other things I would have been loose on, which would have cost me a relationship in the long run, or a marriage in the long run if I got married, because my mindset was inadvertently kind of like passive. It was to give up room to let, okay, yeah, you know what, I don't want to stress about this situation, rah, rah, rah. And I think that is the wrong thing. And I wonder if you guys can speak onto this. So as men, sometimes we do get tired and we're like, you know what, I don't want to fight you today. Just do what you want to do. And I honestly, but and of course, if you've got the wrong woman, this you might want to quit that one. But we're saying that you've chosen the right woman, right? And you have gotten maybe into a situation where it's like you feel like you've battled 1 or 2 times, you've got a little bit tired. I think that's the most dangerous place to be. I think if the moment that you start saying that you are tired and you want, let me just give it to her, I can guarantee you most women are going to take the reins and take it with resentment at the end. Like, and this, I think for us as young men, we have to be aware of this. Like, it is not to say that you're gonna have your hand in every single decision. That's not what it is. That's why smart leadership is important. We know how to pick our battles. But I'm saying for those who are men who are listening, that because we hear a lot of times that they're tired of fighting that woman, or tired of arguing with that woman, or tired of having to go back and forth. And I'm saying, like, there has to be a change that takes place within oneself as a leader. There has to be a change, right? In the way that you operate. And we can't be afraid of taking decisions, can't be afraid of making decisions, can't be afraid to get things wrong, and also to say someone's being wrong. You know what I mean? This is also a part of the power and the responsibility in that aspect. I'm going to throw a word in there. Bible talks about Ephesians 5, the man is the head, the woman is, the body almost, in a sense, right? What do we understand by this? Because someone asked me one day, headship, what does that mean? I want to ask a man then what headship means here. Gus, headship. That sounds like a patriarchal term.
It's definitely going to have a feeling of patriarchy, right? It's just the world we live in. But when the Bible says the man is the head of the wife, the next thing that justifies it, as Christ is the head of the church. And I think that's what a lot of guys, especially even non-believing guys, I do see that's the mistake they fall into. Often you find people quoting the Bible and you ask them, are you a believer? It's like, no. So how are you taking biblical principles out of context? This is why there's chaos, right? It's either you believe in God or not. If you don't, don't try and bootleg principles from the Bible and then do it halfway. So as Christ is the head of the church, how is Jesus the head of the church? Jesus essentially came, and I think this is where a lot of men may not like it as well, is that he said, I came so that you may have life and life more abundantly. Jesus never said, I came for me. He said, I came here to offer myself as the sacrifice. So the moment he says, I came to offer myself as a sacrifice, it's a sacrificial leadership where I have worked to be competent. I have worked to have knowledge in as many areas as possible. I have come to be the rock. I've come to be the last line of defense. I have come to essentially hold the heavy weight. The moment you look at it this way, as a man, you don't go into marriage for vibes ever. You need to spend your singleness preparing. Singleness needs to be a training camp. It needs to be a boot camp, not a waiting room. That's something which I say clearly in my book. It has to be a boot camp so that you're building the strength to hold the weight for marriage, and God will work with you to hold it, right? So when it comes to headship, you're essentially taking on the heat. You're taking on all the heat for the family. So even for Christ, when we fall underneath him, he takes on all the heat for everybody on the cross. And then he says, beyond after taking the hit, I'm still coming to do more work so that where I'm going, you may be also. So for a man, you're always calling your family up to the next standard through sacrificial leadership. And part of that, as you've said, comes with you drawing some hard lines, because values and standards is something that has to be enforced, and it's always enforced out of love. So as a man, part of your leadership, when you draw the line, if you cannot justify how you're drawing the line because of love, that's not a justified way to draw the line. It's not Christ-like. So that's what I would say leadership is, as a quick off the top of my head. But this is a massive topic, because when you're analyzing the life of Christ, there's so many things to pull out of there. But you have to continuously ask yourself as a man, essentially, in every step of the way, the decisions that I'm making, how can I justify this to be Christ-like? If you can't, you need to stop. You the one who needs to pause, because you might be in the wrong.
Why can't you just say no, Dus? Why do you need to explain? Huh? Does God explain every decision? Why can't you just say no? And the person respects no.
I think God explains a lot of things, but people do not have the patience or the ears to hear. That's what the Bible says. Let him who has a hear. Let him who has an ear hear this. Even when Jesus gives the parable of the sower, let the person who has the ear hear this. And he wasn't speaking to a crowd of deaf people without actual ears. So the Bible text is clearly telling you, let the person who wants to hear me hear me. That's what the text is really saying. So as a man, you need to be the same. You need to say, listen, let the person who wants to hear me hear me. The person who doesn't want to hear me, you will soon find out. But as a man, you can't say you will soon find out and then you're out here moving spiteful or you're trying to troll people. You need to be waiting in love. So even when they come back and they say I made a mistake, you need to have the sympathy to say, listen, don't worry, I still got you and I'm going to take the hit for your mistake. You can't tell your wife, oh, she's going to take the hit. No.
So she makes a mistake and you got to take the head. You got to the hits too. What's she doing? It doesn't sound like a fair deal here.
Do you think that Jesus dying on the cross, yet him being the only perfect person, is a fair deal?
I mean, I'm not God. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
Being a man, I would tell any man in this world, being a man, being a godly man, is not built to be a fair deal. So if you're looking for fairness, you're not ready for marriage.
Okay.
Bars.
Okay. Yep, Jeff.
Yeah, to back up his point, headship. Here's the thing: to back up Goss's point, a lot of people they romanticize the concept of leadership or headship, but then there's a bigger responsibility that comes along with it, which is agape love, sacrifice. So, a lot of guys want to position themselves as leaders by way of title. They will call themselves benevolent dictators. They want to dictate. They just want to simply talk, but they themselves abdicate from the actual cultivation of what it is to be in a godly marriage, meaning they also have to be putting in work as well too. And leadership is not something that men are entitled to. It is something that you earn. It is not something that is just freely given. Like, I would also say that when it comes to leadership, it's like leading by example. So the headship part of it is really like Gus says, like Christ, he's the head of the church. Christ, he came to sacrifice. He came to die on the cross. He came to basically be the medium between God and man, whereby he was relatable to his people. And that is what men we are called to be like. It doesn't mean that we are gods. It means that we're supposed to be like him in how we show up. How we show up in terms of how we love upon our wives, how we set the vision and set the tone. God shows us the model, and we're meant to model his behavior towards our wives, towards the people that we love and care about. So in regards to choices and decisions that are being made, it always is done from us leading first in love, leading from a team-based effort, not from a base of, not leading from our ego, because a lot of guys can be very egotistical, thinking that, oh, I'm head. They love that idea of a head. But you do realize, when it comes to that means you're gonna be the one that's gonna take the hits. You're gonna be the one that's gonna be doing a whole lot of damage. You're gonna deal with that. You want fairness, you have to be the one to cultivate that yourself first. If life is unfair, then you are the one who has to lead in making it fair for others. You have to be the one to lead in that. You can't now say, you can't wait for a woman to do things for you before you do for yourself. That's not how it works. And that's why it's best for a lot of guys to stay single, because if they can't get the concept of, I have to lead an example in how I live my life and how I treat people, stay single. Don't be coming up on the internet, coming to talk about, a woman is doing this and a woman is doing that. Bro, you're behaving exactly like the woman that you complain about. It just shows up in the way that people behave. So leadership is something that a lot of guys should not play with, because not a lot of guys are called to be leaders. And I think a lot of guys should stop saying it, because I think a lot of guys need to count the cost, because that's what it is. They have to count the cost of what it is to get into the idea of leading every day, and how you live your life. And how you live your life will determine how people are going to see you, how they will treat you, and what you are going to willing to take and tolerate.
Jay.
The tagline for me has already been said, so I'll quickly write it down. But one who bears the weight of responsibility before God, not the one who wields power over others. And it's in context. Because just like I said earlier, even when you go to Ephesians 5, depending on what type of Bible you have, the start of the point is instructions for Christian households. Then the next line is verse 21, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So the question is, what are you submitting to? So like I was saying, headship isn't about control, about I'm the man, beating your chest and doing all sorts. And I'll also say this, if the lady also thinks that's what headship is, and she thinks a man has to be the most masculine version of himself that goes around, puts fear into people, that's not what that is. Let's understand it from a Christ-like context. So when you go to verse 23, for the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church, which Gus was saying. Understand there is submission there. What is Jesus to the church? Just like Gus was saying. And with guys, it's understanding the servitude, as I mentioned earlier. It's submitting to the responsibility. That's what headship is. You're submitting to the responsibility. And I've always seen it this way. Even when we was talking a few months, Coach, on our thing, that is something that's kind of stuck with me. It's what is that responsibility though? Like, do we understand actually what comes of it, the weight of it? Do we actually understand how does God see it? And also, are we teaching? Are we educating the woman that we choose in terms of, do you understand what that means? Because I don't think it's fair to just assume, like, we don't have all the answers. We don't get everything. So I don't think it's fair just to assume that she will. So it's a continuous thing that we have to discuss, a continuous thing that we have to cultivate, a continuous thing that we have to ask God for more revelation to understand for the both of us, what does that actually mean? That's what headship is. And it's unfortunate because, and I forgot to say this earlier, really this whole conversation that we're having is a trigger warning. Because even though we're not saying anything wrong, the fact that we as men are talking about this, I don't think people understand how much people are going to be triggered in terms of there's going to be something on the inside of themselves that's going to feel uncomfortable and they're going to want to go in their attack. Hence why, Kojo, you had the experience of, I can't remember her name now, of that particular person. So they can't they can't hear that there is no attack happening. It's just that they're not dealing with what's happening on the inside in the proper way. This is what's going to happen. So even for us as men, it's going to be uncomfortable. A lot of men are very uncomfortable, by the way, when it comes to certain aspects of leadership. For a lot of men, it's not normal. It reminds me of Love is Blind. I don't remember his name, but the light-skinned dude that was briefly with the Latino woman, and she was very verbally abusive. Marshall. That's it, Marshall. That's a perfect example of where when he was trying to stand his ground and say no, you can see that wasn't him at all. Now, don't get me wrong, that means he just chose the wrong woman. That dynamic was completely on two different sides, but that's a perfect example of a lot of people are uncomfortable. And in saying that, I just kind of remembered your actual question, why can't we say no? Let's be honest, you can say no. You can. But that has to be the standard of the marriage that you have. So that has to be okay. If not, you're going to cause yourself problems. And I'll also say, we live in 2026. Even for us, we struggle with just hearing no. So having to explain, that's fine. I think the issue is when you're trying to explain, but let's say your missus is not hearing you. She's not trying to get it. Then what do you do? Effectively, that is also just a no. She doesn't understand. She's not getting it. She's not accepting it. That still is just a no. But at that point, your leadership, your fruits, your relationship with God should stand tall. And even if all you need to say is, listen, if you don't want to trust in me, trust in God. And by the way, she will do the same thing. Do you know how many ladies will say, oh, he wasn't hearing me what I was saying, and I just had to just take up with God, and God spoke to him about it anyway. Like this it's more serious than what people think in terms of what that headship means and everything that comes from it. It's even, we can even take up this whole, this whole, 2 hours or 2 hours or more just talking about headship and what does that exactly mean in a household, because it's simple and complex at the same time. but it's complex because of us as human beings.
And I think this is why I think for men, they need to embrace being the villain. Embrace it. Embrace it. Stop trying to be the hero. Okay? God is the hero. Stop trying to be the hero and you will live a longer life. Right? And I said it because I think most of us have grown up wanting to be the hero. We've grown up in aspects. And when I say be the hero, that you want to be perceived in the most positive of lights, right? Nobody wants to be looked at negatively in front of their partner. You know what I'm saying to you? You want to be able to do as much as you can do within your willpower to do so. Do you get what I'm saying to you? But like I said, I think this is why men need to get around other men, right? Because you're empowered when you're around other men, right? And I think I'm going to say again, sometimes when you spend too much time with women, as a man, it cripples you. It cripples you because they have a different way of thinking to things than you do. You're not even in the same power dynamic as them. So they're looking things from their perspective, trying to feed you. I'm not saying don't listen to them. I'm saying to you, you have to take some of it, but you need to have other men around you, because other men around you who have had experience, have gone through things, will tell you there are times where you have to be a villain. There are times where you have to take a hard line on something and it's not pretty. I'll tell you a quick story and I'll let Gus go. My dad was telling me this story about in Ghana, they wanted to buy a car for my mom's side of the family, right? The brothers. Me, I'll keep it real on the buck. They're drunkards. Sorry, I'm not here to they're drunkards, bro. Okay. And I remember my dad was saying to me that he told mom not to then buy them a car, a taxi this expensive to send it to Ghana because they're not in the best business of being able to maintain things. Well, when we got to Ghana a year later, that car was broken down. That car was broken down, and it cost you have to think as well, like, this is the days, these are early nights going to the thousands when you don't have much money and you're sending money to them. You get what I'm saying to you? So that thousand, whatever you spent now, is making you tight on the basis of trying to help them. Now you two are going to be at odds. This is not happening in my household. You know what I'm saying to you? Because we can't afford that. You get what I'm saying to you? And sometimes you have to take a hard line here, knowing that the wisdom that you have is true. And I think this is where, as men, sometimes we have to trust our voice and trust the wisdom that you've been given by God. That you have a level of forthright vision to see that you're not going to be moved by emotions. I'm going to say it again because sometimes, I'm going to be the villain today. I'm going to say some wild things for them, right? Sometimes women will use their emotions to move you. And I'm here to tell you, listen, if you listen to it, brother, you will die another death. Okay? And I say this because it's biblical. What Sarah does to Abraham is gaslighting. Y'all don't know. I'm going to bring you to what truly happened in that story. It's actually gaslighting. She told Abraham, we can have a child outside of this promise. Don't worry. Abraham knew the truth. Sarah said, don't worry. You just go and take this Hagar woman and you get her pregnant. Then we will have a child. You've got a free pass to hit, bro. Yeah? I want to hear this because this is what happens to man them. You got a free pass to hit. The child comes. Hagar decides that she's going to act up a fool as well. Okay? She's seen her position change. She's got a you, and it's Abraham's only you. She's also going to act up a fool. Now, she having a lettet with Sarah, and Sarah says in the end, do you know what? Send Hagar away. Hey, my child that I've conceived, that you told me to conceive with this woman, I shall now send that woman away. And Sarah say, well, it's because she did the exact same thing that Adam did in the Garden of Eden, which is that she vacated the blame for what she had originally suggested. So now Abraham is at the foot of the bill. And guess what? Abraham is at the foot of the bill because he's a leader. So you can't even run away from this situation. Even though she gaslight him, you are still at foot. Because it's now the generations that are coming out of Abraham that were now warring against the sons of Ishmael. So again, the truth that's been given to you as a man, because the promise was given to Abraham at first, this thing he should have not conceded. It was only after that we then hear Sarah gets the message from the Lord and she laughs and God says, why are you laughing for? So she didn't know the story. She didn't know the promise. This was given strictly to Abraham. I'm saying this to say as men that sometimes emotions, a guilt trip, but babe, why not? You will hear all these lines, but when you know the truth, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about any decision. I'm not talking about a TV that you're going to buy. When you know the truth of direction and the place you're supposed to go and the things you're supposed to do, you do not cut corners and you do not turn back and you do not do something that you downright know that God told you, and even if God's principles cover, that you shouldn't do, it will always fall back on you. So I'm telling the men this. Do not let those things warp you. Yes, Gus?
I agree 1,000% with everything you said. And the quick thing that I was going to say as well is, as men, like, this is something which maybe is not emphasized enough as well. The harder and the better you love your wife, the easier it is for them to receive your no. And I think that's a key thing that a lot of men might skip over very easily. But it's like, it's easier for, like, even if we think about our spiritual lives as Christians, for those who are Christian, the more you understand the love of God, the more content you are when you pray for things and you don't receive it yet. Why? Because you're already in that contentment of, my Father knows the best. I trust his wisdom. The love that God has for me as his creation is very, very high, much more than I can even love myself. Therefore, if I'm getting a no for this thing, I trust that there must be a good reason. And actually, I'm feeling the love, I'm feeling the safety already because I trust in your intellect. And I trust in where your heart is. So I think for a man, if you can showcase on a regular basis how much you love your wife through action, through gestures, through all the things that they appreciate, when you say no, it's easier received, 100%. But you know, them African parents, like, I grew up like this in some ways, not fully. Some people had it worse. But when you've got them African parents who are like, no, everything is just no, no, no. And you get meets at home, there's never no hugs, there's never I'm proud of you. Every no just confirms that you must hate me. You brought me into this life to suffer. That has to be my interpretation. Why? The heart, your general heart posture is brutal. So every no is never from love. It's you just want me to suffer and you enjoy my pain. So I think for a man, love hard, love sacrificially, people will understand that when you're saying no, it's for a reason.
Go for it, Jeff, and then Jay.
Yeah, also to add to Gus's point, as you're loving hard and you're loving sacrificially, love intentionally, not passively. Be intentional in when you're demonstrating. I think men need to be intentional when showing their love language to the woman, so that way when it does come to having those hard conversations that need to be had, then it's a lot more somewhat palatable. But I would say, even for me, there were situations in previous relationships I've been in, I was very passive and I cared so much about wanting to please my exes, trying to be the perfect gentleman, trying to say all the right things, do all the right things, when deep down inside I was not being my true authentic self. And it definitely led to a whole lot of trouble later on in the relationships that came after, because I kept on repeating the same process again and again and again, thinking that, oh, I just want to say all the right things in a way that will make her feel good, even though at the same time I'm shutting my own voice out. And then I think a lot of guys don't seem to realize that women will pick up on it and they can read into that, and they won't say anything to you because, hey, they're more so reaping the benefits of your so-called trying to be the yes man, but they know you're not being your genuine self. And that's how I was on a lot of times. And it wasn't until my last relationship with my ex that it really showed me that I should never have changed who I was. I should never have conformed so much that I lost myself in wanting to be so pleasing, because that is not love. That's just obsession. So I say that to say this: that was not me being intentional in love. That was me being passive in love, from a man's perspective. Moving forward, and where I'm at in the place now, I now understand that at times I have learned it is okay for me to say no. It is okay for me to choose. If I'm not from a place of ego, but if I'm given truth, if guys are given truth or direction as to where they're supposed to go and how they look at things, they have to also trust in the wisdom that God has imparted to them to make said choices and decisions. Doesn't mean that they rule with an iron fist, because that's not what leadership does. Leadership does not mean that you rule by might, because it's not your might. You rule with the wisdom that God gives you. Also understanding that you have wise counsel, which is your person you choose to be with. But understanding that you're going to have, I think as guys, I've had to learn that I have to be okay with the reality that at some point I'm going to disappoint someone that I care about. It's just inevitable. You cannot be a hero all the time. You cannot be the good guy every single point. All you have to focus on is doing good unto God, because people will fail you no matter what, but God never fails. And I think that's the mentality that we as guys and us take when we are displaying leadership and doing so from a place of love.
Good points, man. Good points. I love those points you're sharing, guys, as well. And I love the fact you said about disappointment. It's also very good. And that'll be one of my big topics on Thursday. Just to add one thing before Jay goes, you know, I think also, and this probably maybe next week's topic is the headship should come with accountability. So one thing that I always say is I take accountability like a project manager, or like an apprenticeship, the project manager, right? And that even when you do something wrong, the project man can still be fired. You understand what I'm saying to you, right? The project man can still be fired. So the way that I look at things is that even when things are going wrong, and it's not me who directly did it, there is something to learn from this situation. Maybe there's an information skill gap. Maybe we haven't had a conversation about certain things. Maybe there's something to that we need to be able to come into agreement with. But at the end of the day, there is going to be some level of headship that I need to, there's going to be some level of accountability I'm going to have to take in this scenario in some shape or form. You know what I'm saying to you? When I say accountability, and what I mean by that is there's something to learn. I need to be ready to be open to learning what's happened. Because if we're continually making these same mistakes, it's not helping me or it's not helping you. If I'm continually making the same mistakes, I would hope that you would be able to tell me, listen, babe, that's not the way I want you to be spoken to. That's not the way I want to be. Then I can also learn too. There has to be a posture of learning for the man as the head. If you're not ready to learn, you're going to be a very rigid post. But I just want to read this last thing, the scripture, just to say what I said about Genesis. I want you to see this. Genesis 16 verse 2 says, so Sarah said to Abraham, see now the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps we shall obtain children by her. And Abraham heeded the voice of Sarah. I love the fact he said he heeded the voice. Now, verse 5 says, then Sarah said to Abraham, my wrong be upon you. Hey! It gets worse. She said, I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and you. Can you imagine? Your wife is even invoking the Lord now for the thing she told you to go and do. She's now invoking you. And it said, so Abraham said to Sarah, indeed your maid is in your hand, do to her as you please. And when Sarah dealt harshly with her, okay, she fled from the presence. Okay, you see, women from days of patriarchy have been mean to other women. But anyway, so the reality of what I'm saying to you is, in this situation as a man, if you heed at the wrong time when God has told you something, or the truth is what you know, it will, I promise you, will come back to you. If it happens in the Bible, it will happen to you in real life. Go for it, Jay.
Do you know what? This wasn't what I was going to say, but I think this is a good point to mention very briefly. Ladies, I don't know if I mentioned this off or on camera last week, but I don't think some of you realize how much some men, or a lot of men, don't trust you emotionally because of that particular, not because of the scripture, like, you know, what's quoting the scripture, but as a perfect example of what happens when we're talking about we get the blame anyway, or we get the issue anyway. This is the perfect example. So what I'll say to ladies, this is not about you not having a voice or you not being considered. This is quite simply, in your dynamic, make sure the place that you're coming from with your request or your desire, whatever the case may be, make sure it's coming from a place that will bear fruit long term, not short term, i.e. not just based off feelings, but based off understanding, based off wisdom. Even if you have to have like a, not say I want you to do this, but just have a conversation, put things out there, you just do it. Do you know what I mean? It's always best to do things that way because these things consistently happen. Now, I'll segue from that to also say the villain point. It is not about abusing a woman. It is not about mistreating a woman. And I'm sure as soon as we talk about villain, a lot of ladies are instantly thinking, oh my gosh, what, you're going to be bad to me? No, it's purely an understanding that in that moment as a man, you're probably going to be unpopular with your missus. She may even say a thing or two, and it may even hurt. But as Kojo was saying, when you know this is right, just stay with it. Stay with it. One of the things that happens, she ends up respecting you more, like I was saying earlier, especially when fruit comes from it. But the fact that you stand your ground in the first place, the same ladies who try, who say, in fact, the same ladies who probably will end up fighting or battling and getting upset if you don't acquiesce is likely the same lady who will also say, I respect you more for having a backbone. So this is what it means, by just, not like you're choosing to be the villain, choosing to be bad, but you're just standing your ground as a leader, like any leader will do. And it's okay, perfectly okay. But I've got two scenarios of being how I was prepared to be the villain, and how I didn't even think about being that. But after my conversation with Kojo, he said something that was amazing and kind of made me think, wow, a lot of us guys do this. So the first, I'll be very quick. The first story is one of my exes. She wanted to go on some sort of, it wasn't a show, but it was some event to do with politics. But it's one where she would be out there in the public and people would be able to make comments and things like that. She asked me, should she do it? I told her no. She wasn't happy. And I didn't actually explain to her why I'm saying no. I just said, I don't think it's a good thing for you to do. And I can see on her face, she wanted to rage. But by that point, she had kind of understood this man isn't trying to harm me. He isn't trying to block my blessings. He isn't trying to be an obstacle. He isn't trying to be an enemy of progress. I don't like the fact that he said that, but, let me just listen. The reason why I said that is because obviously I knew her. I knew she did not have the emotional capacity to deal with people's negative comments. And I knew she was going to get them because of the way that she is or was. That's why I said it. So that's actually where I gave a hard no, which I actually forgot. But in that moment, I was prepared to be the villain in order to protect her. And by the way, I also knew if I let her go and do such a thing, and then she's now coming back and she's not going to be dealing emotionally with what happened, I knew that I was all of that was now going to be put on me. Do you see what I mean? So that's the foresight I was having to understand in the moment. Nah, I don't think this is a good idea, at least yet. You're not ready for that type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure, just yet. The second one, so with someone in the past, I used to just say, okay. Now that okay wasn't me saying, go ahead and do it. It was me understanding in that moment, you have no limits when it comes to trying to be right or just trying to get your way or just arguing. I know I'm going to get the blame, so I'm going to end this argument and just leave it be. Cool, no problem. What I also used to do, I used to practice, it doesn't matter who starts the argument or how it ends. We need to not let the devil create a picnic, figuratively, let's say in our living room, in our relationship. So what I used to do is to say, all right, I know she doesn't have the emotional capacity to kind of just move on with things quickly and just be the bigger person. But if I can, let me do it. So I used to give her what was her favorite thing at the time, which was flowers. And I used to do that regularly. Now, I did it in my mind because, I want to see her smile, it breaks down barriers, we can kind of move on. One time we had an argument. She was at her parents' house. I went to her parents' house with flowers. And her dad opened the door, started laughing. I said, oh, you got flowers. That means you must have done something. And I looked at him and I was like, no, that's not what happened. It was your daughter. That was very problematic. I'm just choosing to be the emotionally mature one. I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking. But it got me thinking even more because in that situation, it was father like daughter. And I said, let me do a test. So I think later that day or maybe a week later or something like that, I had the conversation with her. And I said to her, when I say okay, I'm not saying you're right. I'm just trying to dead the argument. I'm just trying to end it. I'm just trying to break it. And she said, oh, I never saw it that way. I always thought that you was literally saying that I was right. In that moment, I realized what was frustrating me in terms of our dynamic, I was enabling. Because I wasn't, as a man at the time, saying no. I wasn't at the man at the time properly explaining myself, or advocating is really the word, isn't it? Advocating for myself and saying, I do not think this is right, or this is not the way to go about things. And it's not necessarily like an external decision. It could also be about how we communicate, how we're talking to each other in an argument, whatever the case may be. I was a very different man than I am now. But this is what happens all the time. And this is why I say sometimes as guys, it's not that you're lacking specifically leadership. It's just that the way that we think is completely different than what the woman is receiving. And this is why they say sometimes, was it men are Mars, women on Venus, or wherever it is, vice versa. And this is why communication is so key, to actually check. Do you actually understand what I am actually saying? Are you actually receiving it the way that I want? Because quite often that comes in between leadership. Both sides don't actually quite understand what each other requires or how each other is actually receiving what is said and what is done, which is why I want to say it takes time. But that's the two aspects that kind of, you know, sometimes I draw on those understandings to say, as a man, you really do have to have that foresight, which was already mentioned, but you need to have that wisdom to understand the actual situation. Because not all ladies will be like that, just like not all men will be like that. Not all situations will be like that. But this is just an example for the ladies who've never heard this before, what goes on often on our side of the fence in terms of how we see things and what makes us feel a particular way, and what guys sometimes do extra to try and take control, you know, because quite often we will still get the blame, or we will still hurt ourselves, even though sometimes we think we're doing the right thing. And that's because of the amount of contradiction and things that are out there, which is what creates the complexity.
Well, listen, boys, we have reached our time limit. We've just gone slightly over, but we reached our time limit. You guys have dispensed wisdom upon wisdom upon wisdom, and this topic has a larger base to even go further along. And I think we should continue this topic around men and leadership and what that really looks like. Maybe we can talk about servant leadership as well and how that plays a role in marriage as well, right? Because as much as we've spoken about taking decisions, there is a servitude aspect that comes with it as well. And we would definitely want to be able to explore that for other men to be able to really understand that there's a duality in this role. It's, you know, if you're the head, you're feeding the body. So I'm going to get everyone's final statements. You can give it to a minute or so, your final statements on this, and then we'll round up and that'll be the end of the show in that particular space as well. I'm going to go Jeff, Gus, Jay. I'm going to get your statements. Of course, Jay, you're the deacon of the house, so you will give us the final statement and round us up. Jeff, talk to me, brother. Give me the final statement.
Okay, final statement is, as guys, we're called to lead in terms of leading out of love, servitude, sacrifice, and it's always done also from a place of not from selfishness, but from a place of leading with the best intent of the best intentions. Rather, you're thinking of the person that you care for, leading with them in mind, because you have them in mind in terms of the decisions that you're making because you care for them. So that also means sometimes having choices that they may disagree with, that you have to be okay with voicing it out because you have a vision. Doesn't mean you don't take it into consideration, but it does mean you cannot be afraid to say what it is that you're standing for, especially if you're coming from a place of godly principle. But also, do not silence someone that God has also put in your life to advise you, because just as she learns from you, you also learn from her. Leadership doesn't mean you abdicate from learning at all.
Go for it, Gus.
There's so many things that I would want to share, but I would say if I'm speaking to a man, I would say, and I quote this all the time, where there's no vision, people perish. Please, please, please. What is your vision as a man? What does your home look like? What's the atmosphere in there? If you find a woman, she doesn't fit the vision, you don't change your vision to fit the woman. You keep your vision and you tell the woman, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to work, but go in peace. That's what I would say. And I would also say, when it comes to leadership, I'd always just say, since Christ was willing to die for the church, and that's the same sort of standard that God has given us, look at the woman and ask yourself, bro, it may seem harsh, but ask yourself, would I feel like it will be a worthy cause to die for this woman? It sounds a bit harsh, but it's real. If you genuinely feel as if, do you know what, the world is better off if I stay rather than her, you don't really rate her. So just let her go. Like, you wouldn't really die for her, which means you're probably not going to be so sacrificial for her, because you low-key don't really respect her. But you find a woman that you genuinely feel as if, wow, I would actually give my life for you, and I'd think I would have nice thoughts knowing that I'm going to leave this world so that you can live on and the world will be better off for it. Like, that's a win, that they get to keep you. You respect that woman. So until you get those kind of thoughts around that woman, I would say hold back, because when life gets difficult, that's the place that's probably going to help you carry on.
Hearing it from Jeff and from Gus, I'm hearing it strong. Jay, Deacon, give us the closing remarks and round us up.
So conversations like this are designed to help us both, men and women, and it's really how things are supposed to be. Now, there is a kind of, like, I'll call it a foundation, and it's up to all of us to work out what does that mean for ourselves and what does that mean for our respective marriages, because that could be different, right? It won't always be the same way, and we have to be careful about trying to replicate what someone else has or what we're trying to say. But at the very least, what we're trying to foster is conversations that are not really being had, or at least in a way that gets to the heart of the matter. For a lot of ladies, they're still hearing for the first time, what is the true heart of a man in certain situations? And this is why we freely talk. This is why we speak, which is why we also try not to be biased, because we understand what the woman goes through. But we've also realized, for a more healthier dynamic, we also need to speak on what the man is going through, because this is what each and every one of us ought to be doing in our relationships or marriages anyway, just to join understanding, even to increase understanding of self. So for those who felt a bit triggered by this conversation, please understand, no one here means anything bad. No one here is red pill that's looking out to attack or do anything like that. This is just a conversation that we need to have, continue to have, and make sure that we all get to a healthy place in our respective relationship dynamics. So for everyone in the chat, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, of course, coming on to the landlord as well, 91, and actually supporting us and, you know, this engaging. Because as you can see, some people, and it's not just ladies, by the way. I mean, for those of you who follow Kojo on TikTok, you've seen guys. Some guys can't handle this conversation. And we've had to shut them down. We've had to say, all right, you stay there, we're going to talk to you. Because, yeah, we are where we are now in 2026. So we pray that we continue. We pray that all of us take the words, not only that we've said, but what each other have said on board as well. We better our lives, and everyone else that's in the chat as well, that take on board everything. But ultimately, if something bothers you with what we've said or you misunderstand, yeah, feel free to ask us individually, but most importantly, take it up with God and the word. That should be your first, second, third, middle, and last point of call, just to kind of understand what is he actually trying to say to you, because ultimately, that's what matters. But God bless you all. Gus, Jeff, Cole, as usual, my brothers, I'm excited to have more of these conversations. And Gus, what you were saying earlier, trust me, there's so much more that we can say on these topics, right? But not enough time. But yeah, man, we're here. So we'll continue to have them, man. So we look forward to more. God bless you, man.
Appreciate that, boys. Listen, audience, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a much appreciated conversation. You know, I think the boys have delegated the task well and really dived deep into some aspects of leadership as well. Of course, this topic is not done. Next week, we'll definitely have to broach this subject around the area of talking about, you know, leadership and talking about servitude leadership. I think that's a really powerful thing to talk about, especially if we've got Christians on here. It hits different when we talk about this. And I'm sure the ladies will love that topic there. Yeah, when we can wash their feet, they will love that one. So, but yeah, thank you, Gus. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jay, for, you know, coming and broaching the subject. Audience members, thank you very much for tuning in. We're back again next week with another entertaining conversation as well. If you've been watching, obviously, from Little Black Book, it will be a private link, so you won't watch anymore. You have to go into the Landlord YouTube to watch this back on replay. I appreciate, guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We will see you again very, very soon. You know how we be.
You gotta go. And I don't care where you go, but it just can't be here.